My fiancé and my brother, well, they disgraced and betrayed me in the worst way possible, and I have nothing on my mind except for one thing. Revenge. I'm 32 male. I was engaged to marry Ella, 28 female, 3 weeks ago. We met 8 years ago while we were both in law school. I graduated and now am a small partner at a local law firm. Ella dropped out of school just before graduation due to mental health issues, and now works as a teaching assistant in the local school system. When she dropped out, it was very hard on both of us because she was struggling with very bad depression at the time. And I was very busy with all my exams, so I couldn't give her the attention she truly needed. Fortunately, I passed my exams and got a job quite quickly, so I had more time to spend with her. I come from a family of immigrants, and my parents run a successful restaurant chain in the city. It started off as a cart that they pushed around every day, but they eventually managed to expand, and are now quite well off. Because of this, I didn't have the student loan debt to pay off once I graduated, and I found a job pretty quickly. Ella, on the other hand, comes from a very poor family, and was drowning in debt. She didn't even manage to graduate, so she didn't have the qualifications to get a job either. Well, not a really great paying job at least. At the time, we've been dating for a few years, and we talked a lot about marriage. So I offered to support the both of us, pay rent, bills, etc., until she could pay off her debt. She quickly agreed, and that has been the way we've been living for the past few years. She eventually got her job at the elementary school, and while she was still heavy in debt, it's considerably less than it was before. 2 years ago, I proposed to Ella and she accepted. We were so excited and my family loved her, so it was really exciting to me. Ella dove headfirst into wedding planning, and we had a conversation early on, where I told her that I would be okay with paying the bulk of the cost for the wedding, because I knew that she wanted an extravagant ceremony before I proposed. It took a lot of convincing, but she finally conceded. I've heard of a lot of couples say that the wedding planning was a big stressor on their relationship, but that was the opposite of our experience. Ella and I became closer than ever before. It was a really happy time for us. All of her friends were absolutely delighted. She was great, really understanding, and when I had to work late or when I couldn't make appointments. I have a younger brother. He's 25. He lives with our parents. He's a bit of a screw-up and has dropped out of school multiple times. He's constantly coming up with new ideas and then bailing on them halfway through, leaving everyone to clean up his dirty mess. He's always been quite resentful towards me for having my life together and having a job, but we still get along pretty well. He hasn't had a job in about 4 years just because he's always coming up with get-rich-quick schemes. He lives off of our parents and lives beyond his means. He's always buying new gadgets, and he has 2 cars, and he likes to deck himself out in designer clothing. Ella and my brother never really spoke much. I mean, they got along pretty well, but only as in-laws. They never spent time together or did anything. Only really talked at family events and gatherings. When we announced the news of our engagement, my brother was weird about it. I thought it was just another case of jealousy because I was settling down, and I was making my own money. I didn't think much of it because he's always been like this when I achieve something, and this time didn't seem any different, so I spoke to my parents about it in passing, but he is their youngest, their little darling. So they didn't like to hear anything against him, especially Mom, who dotes on him. Dad is a little bit less blind to him, but still lets him get away with a lot. This used to bother me when I was younger, and he would do things that I would get grounded for, and he got away without a warning. But I've come to terms with it. Ella has always been very supportive when it comes to my relationship with my brother. She encourages me to reach out. Though he was strange at first, it seemed like my brother was getting quite excited for the wedding the closer that it got. About 6 months ago, he began to get really excited. I thought that this was just him finally being happy for me. He started to visit more often, and he would talk to Ella for hours about the wedding. I don't have the head for this kind of thing, and I find it hard to get excited over centerpieces. So honestly, I was just happy that she had someone to talk to in the family. I was pretty happy with the arrangement. I was there when I could, but when I had to work, my brother showed up instead and supported Ella. They began to spend a lot of time together out of the house, but I didn't think much of it. I thought that was just them trying to get a little closer and bond, seeing as they were going to be family soon. My brother is a very handsome man. He's the looker in the family, some would say, and I'm the smart one. All three of us used to joke that my brother could be my stand-in for the wedding pictures, and that he would look much better in a suit than I would. Well, the jokes didn't really bother me because I was very secure in my relationship. Besides, my brother's a bit of a player, and always has some new girl wrapped around his arms. A different one for every day of the week. The week leading up to the wedding, I stayed in my parents' house so that the wedding night would be the first night we spent together in a week. I knew that Ella was getting a little bit antsy, having anxiety about all the plans, so I asked my brother to check in on her a few times. Ella is big on tradition, so she didn't want me to see her too often before the wedding. I was okay with this. I've always enjoyed her quirks, and I was just excited to make her my new wife. My brother would stay at our house till late and come back to our parents' house pretty tipsy. I just assumed that he was helping Ella work through some of her nerves. You can probably see where this is going, right? And a lot of you would probably be wondering why I didn't see this coming myself, but I trusted the both of them blindly, and I never would have imagined that they would do this to me. So, on the day of the wedding, I hadn't seen Ella for over a week. The ceremony was scheduled for 1 p.m. so that we would have a lot of time to get ready. Of course, my brother was my best man, and at 11:30 he was supposed to come to my dressing room and let me read over his speech just to approve the stories he was planning on telling. But the time came and went, and I couldn't find him. I had both my parents searching, and myself was looking for them too. I deliberately steered clear of the bridal suits because I knew that Ella would kill me if I saw her dressed before the actual ceremony. But eventually, I'd searched everywhere else, so I didn't really have another choice. Once I got to the bridal suit, I saw two of Ella's friends standing outside as if they were standing guard. They looked upset when they saw me and tried to stop me from entering the room, but by now I'd started to worry. I pushed past both of them and opened the door. And that was where I found my fiancé and my brother, naked, together on the ground. I think my heart just about stopped. I absolutely froze. I didn't even say anything. I was just staring at them like an idiot. As soon as they saw me, they scrambled apart, both of them reaching for their clothing. I don't know why I noticed this, but Ella's dress was hanging on the door, and all I could think was how beautiful it was. I didn't even give them a minute to explain themselves. I just marched out of the room, got into my car, and drove into the sunset. I didn't want to go home, not where they'd be looking for me, so I drove for a few hours and stopped at a bar in the middle of nowhere. Once I sat down and ordered the strongest drink that I could find, I checked my phone. It was 3 p.m. by then, so I'd missed the ceremony, and I had about 1 million texts and just as many calls clogging up my home screen. Most of them are from Ella and a few from my brother, and about 10 from my mom. The only one I replied to was my mother. I just told her that I was safe and that I was sorry for not telling her I was leaving. As soon as the text was sent, my mom starts calling me and she was furious. She was yelling at me, asking how I could do this to Ella, asking if I knew how much I embarrassed her. I was confused, so I asked what she was talking about. Apparently, my brother and Ella had lied and told everyone that I'd bailed. I told my mom exactly what happened. I spared no details. Well, she was absolutely quiet for a few seconds and quietly apologized for yelling. I told her that I was going to be out of town for a few days and just put the phone down. Then I turned it off. Honestly, I spent the next few days on a bender. I crashed in a motel and I was drinking all day and night. I was so angry. I didn't exactly feel hurt. I didn't feel sad. I was just seething with fury. Before I drank myself stupid the 4th day in a row, I decided I had to sort some things out. So I got back into my car and drove home. I didn't know exactly where I was going to stay because Ella was probably at our house and my brother would either be there with her or at our parents'. I dropped by the house and didn't see either of their cars, which was a good sign. So I went inside, grabbed some clothing, and I've been wearing my wedding suit for the past 5 days, and it was absolutely disgusting. I left it on the bed for her to sort out, and checked myself into the hotel. Once I turned my phone on again for the first time since I spoke to my mother, I had even more missed calls and voicemails and texts and emails even from Ella. They were all so apologetic. She told me that she was so sorry, that she hoped she hadn't ruined everything, that it wasn't personal, that it didn't mean anything, that it was just some stupid fling, and that she loved me. I deleted all of them without reading most of them, and texted my mom to let her know where I was staying. A few hours later, a knock came on a hotel room door, and since I expected it to be Mom, I answered it without even looking through the peephole. And when I opened the door, there stood my brother and Ella. As soon as I saw him, I punched my brother as hard as I could. I ended up breaking his nose flat. And while Ella was crouching over him screaming, I just closed the door and called security. They escorted them out of the building, and, well, that was a few weeks ago, and I'm still staying at the hotel. My mother's come to visit a few times, bringing home-cooked food so I don't have to live on room service. She didn't yell at me for breaking my brother's nose at all. I was surprised to find that she seemed just as angry with him as I was. I'm not even angry anymore, though. The sadness has crept up. I feel betrayed, and I feel like a complete idiot for not seeing that's been happening right under my nose. My time off from work is almost up, and the fact that I've spent my honeymoon alone is more depressing than anything. Tomorrow, I'm going to have Ella and my brother meet me for lunch, and I'm going to listen to the stupid excuses they have. When they're done, I'm going to lay down my demands. The demands will be as followed. Number 1, Ella will be vacating our shared home within the week. Number 2, the both of them will be making public statements on their Facebook pages explaining exactly what they've done and apologizing for it. Number 3, they would both be paying the exact cost of the wedding preparations, meaning both will pay for the full amount without using our parents' money. Number 4, if any of these terms are not met, I'll be suing the both of them for every cent they have, and I'll take everything from both of them. I've spent the past couple of weeks drafting these demands, adding and removing lines and clauses, and these are what I've narrowed them down to. I don't care how much either of them beg, apologize, or plead. I know the law. I know that it's on my side, and I know lawyers. Good lawyers. Any of my colleagues at my firm would back me up on this, and they know how much I've done for Ella. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. So there's a few updates on this story. What a disaster, right? Well, we're going to jump into update number 1, which is another meeting between OP and Ella. Here it is. I met with them yesterday. They actually had the audacity to try and negotiate my terms. I'm shocked by their nerve to think that they are right. I explained calmly and clearly exactly what would happen if they do not agree to my terms, and they still tried to bargain with me. My mind's been made up. My leave ends tomorrow, and once I get to work, I'll be drafting my lawsuit. I'm going to take everything from them. I've told my parents my plans, and while they aren't happy, they know they can't interfere. They know that my brother deserves this. I texted a friend of mine who works at a different firm that specializes in divorces. We're going to have lunch the day after tomorrow to discuss everything that I'll need to do, and all the paperwork that I'll have to file. This is going to be a long fight, and I know I might just be humiliating myself by putting everything on public record. But I'm not going to let them do this to me and get away with it. Update number 2 takes place a few months since the last update, and here it is. The lawsuit's underway, honestly. I think that deep down I'm kind of glad they did not take my offer. I feel like it would have been too easy for them. Obviously, they would have struggled with money and been embarrassed by the public apology on social media, but all they would have lost was their dignity. Now, I'm going to take everything. I don't think that they believed that I would actually go through with my threats. I'm not usually a malicious guy, and they know it. But this time is different. They humiliated me without a second thought, all while pretending to be excited for the wedding. It was more than a betrayal. Both of them have now realized that I was serious, and both have separately contacted me, and blamed the other for seducing them. I don't believe either of them, obviously. They're trying to save face as best as they can, and it makes me feel a little better that they're willing to throw each other under the bus like this. Honestly, I think that it would have felt worse if they were more loyal to each other than they have been to me, or if they were actually in love or something. Though, at the same time, that means that they've betrayed me purely physical reasons. I keep trying to think up ways to absolve them, trying to spin the situation so that I don't have to lose either of them, but the anger wins every time. When I went back to work, I felt like nobody in the office knew what happened. like they were staring at me and whispering behind my back. Now, I know that obviously some gossip did happen, but I know that most of them are just wondering what exactly happened. I haven't told anyone exactly why the wedding was called off, and it seems as if Ella and my brother neglected to mention it too, in an attempt to save face. I'm not going around broadcasting it either. I'm waiting for them to agree to my terms and make their public apology themselves, and if they refuse, then they'll have to explain exactly why I sued them for everything they had. The only person that I told is my friend, the one who's helping with the lawsuit. Ella's parents have contacted me too and apologized on her behalf. I don't think that they meant it though, because as soon as the apologies were out of the way, they began laminating Ella's mental health. They said that she was struggling worse than when she left school and that they were worried about her. I wasn't having it, and told them it was a shame she cheated, because she wouldn't have to bail her out this time. They hung up pretty soon after that. My mother's tried gently broaching the subject that I should just let it go. Forgive and forget, but I don't know if she actually means it or if she's trying to protect her favorite son. I hope that it's the former, because she's really just does seem to be on my side with this one, but you never know. The only one of my demands that Ella agreed to was her leaving the house. I'm pretty sure she only did this because my name is on the lease and not hers. She also knows how good I am at my job and how well I know the law, so she probably knew that she would not win the case. It's that confuses me. Both of them know that they have no chance of winning, and yet they're still trying to negotiate. I've only seen them a few times since the actual wedding, and looking at their faces just makes me actually sick. My parents make sure that my brother's out of the house whenever I come to visit them. And once Ella moved, we've had little contact, and now the only times I see them is when we meet up for legal negotiations. The both of them have hired separate lawyers, which just shows that they have no loyalty towards each other. But neither of them can even afford a good lawyer. My parents have refused to allow my brother to use their money for this, and Ella could not afford a good lawyer even if she wasn't in debt. So there's no possible way of them winning. But they're still trying to convince me to change my mind and to settle. Unfortunately for them, my mind's made up, and once I make up my mind, I don't budge. That's something they should know about me, having known me for such a long time, but apparently they were only paying attention to each other. Well, guys, I will update soon. Well, Mr. Reddito here, it seems like OP did update soon, and there's some things that go down in Update 3 that you might not have seen coming. I hope you guys are enjoying this saga story. If you are, and you do want to support the channel, it's very simple. All you have to do is click that subscribe button. It only takes a couple seconds. You can find the button directly under this video, and let's check out what's happening in Update number 3. As I suspected, my mother is on my brother's side. She called me the other day and asked if we could meet for lunch. I sort of knew where this was going, but agreed in the hopes that I was wrong. We had a really nice lunch together and was beginning to think that I'd harshly judged her. When she brought up exactly what I knew she was going to talk about, she said that I should drop the lawsuit for my own sake, not just for my brother's. She was right when she said that since the wedding, I have become a very angry and a vengeful person. I know that I'm like this, but I don't really see how I could be any other way. She asked if I really wanted to humiliate both of them, and I said yes, with all my heart. I then asked her if my brother had asked her to speak to me on his behalf, and while she denied it, I didn't believe her. I do think that she wants to bring the family back together, but I don't believe she has to see me out of her own desire to help my brother. I just know that he put her up to it. I don't have enough room in me to feel betrayed by my mother right now, but the fact that my brother tried to use her to get into my good books makes me even more sure that I want to go through with this. I'll update you if anything crazy happens. Update number 4. This lawsuit's been dragging on for months now, and the negotiations went quickly, because I was so adamant about my demands and refused to budge. But once all the paperwork was filed, everything sort of came to a grinding halt. I'm not too fussed about that, though, as long as I get my revenge eventually. I know that sounds silly and like a line from a bad movie, but revenge is all I have now. I can't trust anyone anymore. The woman that I thought I would spend the rest of my life with, the one who I supported emotionally, physically, and financially, and my only brother, someone I grew up with, are the ones who did this to me. I'm still finding it hard to wrap my head around exactly what happened. I found myself going over the time frame in my mind, wondering when it began. Sometimes I wake up and forget for a split second what happened, and wonder why Ella's not in the bed next to me. And then I remember and have to go on about my day alone. My mom's been pushing more and more for me to drop the lawsuit, telling me that my brother's suffering enough. But everything she says is sounding hollow to me. I've stopped answering her calls, and her insistence of defending my brother has just become another betrayal in my head. She's reminding me of Ella's parents, who are still trying to convince me to forgive her any chance they get. Her father cornered me in the grocery store the other day and told me that she'd be ruined if I went through with this, and they'd never see her mental health so bad. Again, I reiterated that it was a shame she'd cheated, because the last time she had a mental breakdown, I'd been there to pick up the pieces and support her, but now she'd have to go through this alone. No one, not even my own parents, have asked about my mental health in the past months. They assume that I'm just fine, too consumed with rage to still feel the betrayal deeply. But there's something about that where they're wrong. I'm hurt that my fiancé would do this, that my brother would betray me. But I think what's really fueling me now is my mom's decision to protect her favorite little baby boy. I thought that I've gotten past my resentment over the way she's treated us differently as children, but apparently now, because it's all bubbling back up, when she'd refused to pay for my brother's lawyer, I thought that she was finally coming to value me as her son. Not picking favorites anymore, but it seems as if, like my brother and Ella, her loyalty has limits. Updates number 5. Well, the pair of them have agreed to terms finally. I think that they knew they were getting dangerously close to losing every penny they had to rub together. I'm content to allow them to fold. It was never about the money for me. I just wanted them to feel the humiliation of the pain that I felt when I saw them on the floor out of our wedding venue together. We've reached a settlement outside of court, and both of them will pay me the amount I spent on the wedding separately. I hear that they've both needed to take a loan out in order to pay me, but I could care less if their credit score tanks. I just want to feel their pain. I also insisted that they allow me to edit the draft of their Facebook post before they post it. I won't be having them skirting responsibility or talking around what they did. I want every juicy detail. Some people have called me dumb and told me I'm only embarrassing myself by insisting that they tell the world that they cheated. But I don't care about my reputation. People can laugh behind my back all they want, as long as they found out exactly what type of person Ella and my brother are. Mom's happy that I've dropped the suit, but she's still trying to carefully convince me not to take my brother's money. I ended up blowing up on her the other day and asking why she always took my brother's side. I asked her if I meant anything to her, or if I was just the older brother to her real golden boy. She seemed taken aback by my outburst. I'm normally such a mild, soft-spoken person, but these past few months have seemed to mold me into something else. I'm not sure that I like who I'm becoming, but I don't know if I would be able to cope if I resorted back to the way I was. Being trusted and kind ended up making me lose everything. I'd rather be an angry person than be caught off guard like that ever again. I haven't talked to my mom in a few days, and I kinda want to call her up and apologize for yelling, but I've been apologizing my entire life, trying to keep the peace whenever she took my brother's side on anything. But no, not this time. Every time I consider calling her, I remember the bridesmaids standing outside the door, trying to stop me from entering. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. They've had enough sense to have lookouts watching the door. They weren't caught up in a fit of passion. If they were level-headed enough to worry that someone could walk in, then they were level-headed enough to know that what they were doing was wrong. I'll be meeting with my lawyer one last time tomorrow. Since he's a friend of mine, he's lowered his rate considerably, but it's still a big expense. I'm counting on some of the money I get in the settlement to pay for it, which is another reason I've been so adamant that they pay me. I just wanted to thank you all for your kind replies and messages. I didn't expect that I'd get so much support on this throwaway post, but you guys have really been supportive. It's really needed some friends through all this, and you guys have stepped up when my family could not. So once again, thank you for all the comments. What's up guys, Mr. Reddito here. So, it's been a while since the final update came out, and OP wanted to go ahead and release just one final mini update. It's been 6 months later, and we're going to see exactly what happened with the settlement. Hey guys, sorry for the long post. It's been 6 months now since I've reached the settlement with Ella and my brother. Life's kind of gone back to normal, or as normal as it could be. I had a long talk with my mom about how I felt, that she always chose my brother over me, and she apologized and admitted to it. I was shocked. My mom's not usually the apologetic type, and I think my dad might have had a word with her about it. Though, I haven't seen my brother in months. I always text ahead when I'm going to visit my parents, and they send him to his room or make him go for a drive. I appreciate the gesture. I'm not sure that I'd be able to relax with them in the same room. Ella parents have stopped contacting me, and I told them I'd file a restraining order. And after the lawsuit dragged on for so long, I think they knew that I was serious. Ella's been staying with her parents as far as I know, and I don't think she had any more contact with my brother than I have. She's been paying me in monthly installments in accordance with the settlement. I considered charging her interest, but I decided that would just be too petty. I'm content with my demands, and it would put too much of a financial strain on her to pay interest on both her student loans and her payments to me. Some people have said that I'm being too considerate of her feelings, but I'm not a dirtbag. I just want what I'm owed. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm actually starting to date someone new, too. She's a temp at the firm, and we get along immediately. It's only been a few weeks, but I'm taking it as a good sign that I'm not damaged irreparably from everything that occurred. I won't be introducing her to my brother anytime soon. Thanks guys for listening and helping me through this debacle. So my biggest question I have for this story, the betrayal, all that happened, you have to remember every single bad detail and every single good detail, but in the end, if you were OP, would you go ahead with the lawsuit, or would you go ahead and say, hey, if you agree to these terms, I won't continue? Or are you just going to push through and say, we're doing this lawsuit? Guys, let me know your thoughts about this, and also, if you ever have any experience that OP went through, go ahead and share with us how you handled that. Me, personally, I can't even imagine being cheated on by your fiancé and betrayed by your brother merely hours before you tie the knot with your significant other. And not only that, her own friends, who I was supposed to trust, had lookouts. That means they knew about it the whole time. Guys, let me know your entire thoughts of this story. Drop your comments down below. So my ex-wife absolutely ghosted me. Deleted me off all social medias. Well, guess what? She doesn't leave it there. Just as soon as I finally think she's gone, well, the inevitable happens. I did not see my wife's true colors until the last time I lost my job. I used to have a senior position in a big company. My job had a lot of perks and paid well. It was such that my wife of 4 years did not have to work. I took care of her. She was a good wife, taking care of the household, myself, and my mom. My mom's very old, and I decided that she would stay with me instead of going to the old age home, like my siblings wanted her to. I stopped talking to my siblings over the matter. They did not value all that her mom did for us so that we could get to where we are now. Now that she's old, blind, and needs care, they want to lock her away with strangers and just forget about her. I could not let such a thing happen, so I took her to stay with us. Enid and Mom got along as far as I knew, and if they had any issues with each other, I never knew. If my wife told me that there were certain aspects of her life she was unhappy about, I would have done anything to make her feel comfortable. When she quit her job because she hated it, I found no trouble in providing for her. Money wasn't a big deal for me. I used to take care of my loved ones and live a comfortable life. This was why, when I was implicated in cash that had been stolen at work, it was a surprise. The person I worked with was one that was not to be trusted, but since he was the boss's nephew, they made me the scapegoat and fired me. I did not go on my record, and I still got some compensation, but now I had to look for a job. Well, I found a job, but it was a huge downgrade from the one that I previously had. So my wife, who does not like working, told me that she wanted to do some modeling work. She's 32 and still looks very youthful at the time, so I didn't stop her. The choice was hers as long as she was happy. I went to some of her shoots when I had time, and I could see that she was truly happy. With her gone, we hired a nurse to take care of my mom day and night. For months, such a setup worked for us. That was until I saw those cufflinks. I was looking for my tie. Enid was out on a shoot, and I did not want to bother her, so I started searching on my own, and I found a very big box. Thinking that maybe she put my tie in it with all her other stuff, I opened it up, finding mostly her stuff there, but then I came across a set of cufflinks. I could see that they were from a very expensive brand that I couldn't afford. She had no brothers, so why did she have these expensive cufflinks? I was mildly disturbed as to why she would have cufflinks that belonged to a man in her stuff. But I thought there was probably just a reasonable explanation, and she was not really cheating. When she came home, I asked her what's up with the cufflinks, and she immediately starts laughing and told me they were for me. She forgot to give them to me. She told me that she was given them at a shoot. She was told to give her husband or a friend. I felt really dumb for suspecting her like that. But then my mother told me to be careful. She said that my wife thought that just because she's blind, she couldn't hear. But my wife had been lying to me about sometimes when she was going to a shoot, since she was using my car most of the time. She thought it looked better with her, and who was I to argue? I decided to track my car. Not once did my wife go near the places where she said she was going. Yet somehow, she still came home with money that she worked. But she did not go to her particular address more times than once. When I searched the address, I found out that it did belong to a photographer. I asked my cousin, who's 20, if she could find out more about the photographer. As soon as she saw the pictures of him, she said that she knew him. She told me that he's very popular among some of her peers for filming content for them. I could not deal with it anymore. I was losing my mind, going crazy. When my sister told me that kind of content it was, I went sick to my stomach. We had agreed that she would keep her modeling tasteful, so why was she doing this? Had all other shoots just been a front for what she was really doing? As far as I knew, that sort of content had a lot of money to it, but we did not need all that money. Sure, we had to cut down on a few things, but hey, I thought we were happy. I decided to visit the man and tell him to fire her. She'd failed to be transparent to me and did not think about how what she was doing was going to reflect on our family. She could have at least told me this was what she was doing. So I went to see the photographer. I told him about my wife and asked that he should just stop filming her. His name was Raphael, and he had a very impressive studio. His work appeared to be tasteful, but I did not let that fool me. Raphael did not appear fazed by my words at all. He told me that even though he did film that kind of stuff, the only modeling my wife did was hand modeling as well as small campaigns. Then he showed me a portfolio of her work, and I just felt so stupid. I apologized for what I accused her of and left. But before leaving, I had a moment of deja vu. I asked Raphael not to tell Enid, and he swore. He said he got complaints from husbands all the time, so he got where I was coming from. The man who walked me out was familiar. Something about the studio, or was it him, made me feel like I was living through something again. I shook it off as nothing. 3 days later, my wife was rushing to work and she left her bag in our room. I quickly took it and rushed outside before she could pull out the driveway so that I could give it to her. I managed to reach her in time and give it to her, but when I came back, I stepped on something in the driveway. I picked it up, only to see that it was a positive pregnancy test. I was over the moon. Finally, we were going to have a baby. I ran indoors and told my mother the good news, but told her to hush because she had not officially told me that she was expecting. It was insane. No wonder she'd been having those mood swings and have been ignoring me the past few days. I wanted to make up for how I'd been so suspicious of her, so I got off work late and decided to make dinner for her. I would make very good food if I do say so myself. My mother taught me well. I sent her a message asking her what time she was coming home, but I got an error message. I checked the Wi-Fi connection, but it was stable. Then I saw that her profile picture was blank. I tried to call her, but I was told that she was unavailable. All of her social media was gone, and I was worried. She was in such a fragile state. This was not the first time that she's blocked me. A simple thing could tick her off, and then she would just deactivate her social media accounts until she saw she was okay. On those days, she went to her mother's house to rest. I'm not supposed to disclose her exact condition, but she suffers from a personality disorder. She's kept it managed for years, but some days are not good days. I did what I usually do when this happens, and it's to check if she's arrived at her mom's house. Her mom could at least confirm with me if she was still breathing. In panic mode, I called her mom. Her mom told me that she was okay, but she just needed some time. I was deflated, excited about the earlier news, but feeling empty because she was not here. Maybe she was having second thoughts about a baby, and she did not want me to find out. I went upstairs for the first time that day, and I was met with emptiness. She had taken her mirror, her jewelry box. Her closet was empty. There was not even an item of clothing left. I called my mom's nurse, asking if she knew anything, which was when she produced the letter. The letter was from her. It read this: Dear John, I love you, but I can't stay anymore. I feel suffocated. I need to breathe. I don't think this life is the life for me. Don't look for me. Pretend I have ceased to exist. I just can't do this anymore. Goodbye. I told Dee, the nurse, to leave, and then I punched the wall so hard my knuckles started bleeding. She did not leave a trace when she left me, carrying my baby. A few days later, I heard the news that Raphael had fled town and eloped with a woman. That had me thinking about whether the baby was mine or not. The worst part, I'll never know, and I was left here in this house that feels emptier each day. My mother passed away a few months ago, and before she passed, she told me that time would heal me. But it's been 6 months since she's left, ghosted me, and has not contacted me. I still go to work, come back home, and I drink till I pass out. I don't think I have a drinking problem, but I think I am depressed. I have no one left in the world. She's out there, happy. I still don't know what I did for her to cheat on me, and I ask myself those questions every single day. Sometimes I feel that I should not respect her choice, that I should say darn it all and hunt her down like a bounty hunter. I want her to look me in the eyes and tell me it's over, not with some stupid letter. Gosh, I feel so pathetic. I guess the reason I'm even sharing any of this is that so anyone can know how I'm feeling. I've not opened up to any friends or family, and I fear being seen as weak. So I put up the mask of being unaffected in front of them, and they don't ask any questions. I also need to ask, is there a way, any way, I can move on with life? I feel so tired. I just don't know what to do. Update 2 months later. After sharing what happened with you, I slept easier that night. The next morning, I felt a bit lighter. I started to clean out the house and throw her stuff away for good this time. Within the next week, I went out to play golf with a buddy. I did little things within these 2 months to regain my life. I also started to attend weekly counseling sessions. Those opened my eyes to the fact that maybe I was dealing with a narcissist. I'll not go into detail about the very beginning stages of our relationship, but there was so much that I let her get away with, just red flags, because I didn't want to lose her. It makes me wonder, did my love for her turn into an obsession? I've been doing the most difficult thing that a human can do, and that's to talk to myself in a brutally honest manner. Through that, I've slowly started to let light into my life again. I really believe that I'll be okay one day. When I read through my last post, I realize that I don't feel that anger and sadness anymore when I was writing it. It's slowly fading away. Thank you everybody for the comments and suggestions you've given me on how to move on. I think I can do it. Alright guys, Mr. Reddito here. So, it's been a year. Everyone thought that this was just over with since nobody posted an update to this for a whole 367 days. But oh no! Exactly almost 1 year later, OP says this. It's now a year after my last post. So many good things have happened to me ever since that post. I stopped thinking about her and what she did to me, and soon I was able to get back to living. My work improved and I was able to get a transfer and even a promotion. The area I now stay in is very quiet, small, and cozy, perfect for me and my fiancé. Yes, my marriage to Enid dissolved more than a year ago. I did not lose anything to her, thankfully, and we went on our way. I've not seen her in over a year and a half, but I'm convinced that the child she was carrying was not mine. Why else would she run away with some photographer? Either way, I've forgiven her because I am a decent person, and not because she deserves it. Well, I met my now fiancé when she was involved in an accident on the side of the road. The person who hit her car ran away like a coward, and she was late for a meeting. I memorized the number plate of the car. My memory is excellent, by the way. And then I walked up to her and said it, without even saying hi. She looked at me like I was crazy and was about to start shouting for help. Until I told her it was the number plate of the person who hit her car and ran. She was very thankful to me. I stayed with her as she called the police and got through the formalities. I don't know what made me want to stay there and make sure she was okay. Well, she took me out for coffee afterwards, and the rest is history. I'm just so happy these days. I guess my mom was right. It does heal over time. I just feel so much more youthful and have not resorted to my bad habits in so long. My fiancé and I are expecting a baby soon, and we're planning a small wedding with other families and friends. I love my job, and I've been able to advance further over the past year. The problem comes with the fact that I've been dreaming of Enid, and, well, it's a little unsettling. Sometimes when I'm out, I think that I see a glimpse of her and it scares me. It feels like I'm trying to chase a ghost at times. The dreams about her are not pleasant at all, but I know better than to look for her. She made her decision when she left me out in the cold with her questions. She didn't even send condolences when my mother passed. I've worked so hard for all that I have. I don't want or need her in my life, to be honest. What should I do to make these dreams stop, though? I'm thinking of getting sleeping pills. With sleeping pills, I hardly ever dream. When I spoke to my best friend Peter about it, he told me that, in his belief, dreaming about an ex means that there's something unresolved. But if there's something unresolved, will that mean I have to look for her and find out what it is? I'm happy, I told Peter. I don't need her crashing into my life and burning everything she touches like she usually does. I did not get here easily. Mr. Reddito here. I hope you guys are enjoying this wild story. If you thought it was wild so far, you are not ready for the next part because it's about to take a sharp turn. You know what? I'll just read you the title of this update. She's back, and you'll not believe what she's saying. Well, my last post aged pretty poorly, I'll say. I did not look for her, she found me. Somehow, I've changed my number, job, and address, but somehow she still found me like Inspector Gadget. She sent me a text asking me to meet not even 2 weeks after I started dreaming about her. There was nothing I wanted to say to her, so I blocked her. She called her phone many times, and Claire got very suspicious about what I was getting so many phone calls about. I had to lie to her and say that I accidentally subscribed for a telemarketer to call me. I felt bad when the very next day she got our phone changed because she wanted me to have some peace. Peter told me that maybe I should tell her the full story about what happened and not just summarize versions. Did I listen? No, I don't ever listen to Peter. I should have listened because Enid showed up at my fiancé's workplace with a child that she says is mine. I was at work thinking of getting a restraining order against Enid. Well, speak of the devil, and she shall come knocking. Claire called me saying that a woman was claiming to be my wife who came here with a young boy who's supposed to be my son. After all these years, wow, she has perfect timing to ruin my life for a second time, doesn't she? I've mourned her and that child, buried them in my mind, and then they come waltzing back into my life as if nothing's happened. I told Claire that I would talk to her later and then sent a text to Enid, asking her if she's crazy. I told her to stay the heck away from my fiancé, and she said she's been trying to get my attention, but I was ignoring her. Did she think she could just waltz back into my life and I was going to welcome her back with no questions asked? I was shaking. I didn't know the child was mine, and I'm still trying to process all this. Finally, I got the guts to tell her that we could meet up and talk the next day. When I got home, Claire was furious, rightfully so. She asked why I did not tell her that I have a child, and she asked why was I still married to Enid. Well, I'm not married to her. I don't know what she's even on about. I had no choice but to brutally be honest, go into deep detail about what happened, and ask for forgiveness. Well, Claire forgave me, telling me that she was going to be there for me no matter what, and I do not deserve that kind of loyalty. I'm just so lucky to have her. The next morning, I met with Enid. Claire waited in the car while I talked to Enid. Seeing her for the first time since a year and a half ago was definitely a shock to my system. She's changed so much. It's honestly hard to recognize her. She was once full of light, energy, and passion, but the person standing in front of me had aged 10 years. She had the smell of cigarettes on her, and had gained quite a few bit of pounds. Next to her was a young boy, with big eyes and a scrawny body. I sat down without talking to her and ordered something. Then I greeted her. She just busted out crying out of nowhere and said that she was glad to see that I was well and fared better than she had. After she left me, she continued to model for Raphael until her tummy started poking. She had no choice but to tell him that she was pregnant, but he wanted her to abort the baby. She didn't want to, so he dumped her. Since then, her life went downhill fast and she struggled to take care of the baby. And then she told me that she wanted to have our life back, just me, her, and our son. Excuse me, did I have the word fool written on my forehead in permanent marker? I told her that I moved on and I don't want her back. So then she brought out the big guns. The manipulation tactics such as crying and blaming her mental health for what she did. I knew she thought she still had power over me that once she had, but not anymore. Being with her was mentally straining and draining. No matter how hard I tried to make her happy, she was never happy. She left me a broken mess, and now she wants to finish me off. I told her that I don't want her back, but we still need to do a DNA test on the boy. Who knows? It could be her trick to get me back into her life and ruin it. The boy just looked so innocent and lost, sad and confused when he looked up at me. I had to look away because I felt horrible. She knew that this would do this to me. How much I wanted a child. I stood up and I could not do this for a second longer. I was bringing back such dark memories in my life. Just sitting there. And then she told me not to dare leave or she would make sure I never got to see my son ever again. I stopped. I could not look at her or anyone. I just felt myself shaking with anger, fear, and just so many other emotions. Then a confronting hand was on my shoulder and I saw that it was Claire. She told me that all was going to be okay. She sat down and asked Enid what she wanted. Enid said she wanted money. Lots of money for child support. Claire said, okay, well, we need a DNA test then to prove that is his son. Enid told her not to get involved because she was just sloppy seconds. Claire told her that at least she truly loved me and did not hurt me once. Too fast for me to even do anything, Enid grabbed Claire and slammed her head on the table. She was about to come over to the other side and finish her off, but I grabbed her. She starts shouting and trying to attack me. I shouted for Claire to call for help. Enid's little stunt earned her some hours in jail for assault. Thank goodness for the security camera. The child was put in foster care in the meantime, but I was able to get a court order so that we could do a DNA test. Well, we're getting the results in a few days, and I do not know how to feel. Claire says that no matter what, she'll still love me and accept the child. I do not know how to feel about this child linking to me and Enid for the rest of my life. I feel that no matter where I go in the world, she'll follow me like a dark rain cloud. I don't love her anymore. I see her for the viper that she is, and I'm scared for my wife and unborn child. She always has so many tricks up her sleeve that she could do whatever she wanted and get away with it. So now I have to plan for the future, just for our safety. Alright guys, Mr. Reddito here. I told you that was absolutely crazy update. It's not over yet, we're about to get the DNA results, so I'll go ahead and read them to you like a day show. He is not the father. Here's your update. He's not my son. I did not know how to feel when I found out. It was a confirmation of what I suspected. He probably was the son of Raphael, who had dumped her as soon as he found out she was pregnant. My heart did not feel okay, knowing that she was going to be responsible for that child for the rest of his life. So then, Claire and I went through our charges of assault and stalking. It was not even that hard for the court to decide that she's not to deserve full custody of this child. She's been involved in a lot of shady stuff over the years, and it's catching up on her. The court did a full evaluation of her and felt that she needed to go get some help. Otherwise, she's a danger to herself and society. I felt so sorry for that poor boy. By the way, his name's Bryce. Although I felt that I should have left him alone and forget about him, I felt that this real dad has to at least acknowledge him. My fiancé and I have just sent messages to his father, asking him to see his son. Let us hope that he responds. Next update, a month later. He did not respond for weeks after we sent the message, though we kept in contact with Bryce, making sure that he was in a safe home. I often wonder if she did not run away, I would have raised him as my own, and I would have never met Claire, or she would have eventually left me and run off with a new lover. I've tried to analyze Enid, but to this day, I don't know what she thinks. 7 years ago, that mysteriousness was what made me so attracted to her. I should have read the warning signs of danger, but in a way, that danger led me right to the path of Claire, my wife. Claire and I have just gotten married, and we're waiting until our baby's born before we go off on our honeymoon. I feel that we had a new lease on life, and the past few weeks have been on a honeymoon of itself. But that honeymoon has been clouded by responses from Raphael. It was not at all what I was expecting. I was expecting anger, silence, or even acceptance. Raphael denies having fathered the child. He says that he had a vasectomy when he was 20 years of age. Unless it's some sort of medical miracle, that child cannot be his. I was at a loss for words, wondering who else would father the child. I went through his social media as far back as a year ago. I saw the post where she was present and tried to see which men she was linked to back then. And then I stopped dead in my tracks. For there was a man who looked a bit like Raphael but younger. His account showed that he was Raphael's younger brother. I was now in a frenzy, so close to finding out something. Anything. I did not know what drives me to find the man who fathered the child. Maybe I don't want him to land back in her custody, and I can't take him in. Claire's been through so much, and I simply cannot ask that of her. So, I went through his profile, and nothing was odd. Until boom! Guess what I saw in one of the pictures? Cufflinks! The same brand that she had in her stuff so long ago. The one she lied about being gifted and then gave to me. It was him. I could see it in the eyes that looked similar to those of Bryce. I sent him a message and told him that we have to meet. He was close by and drove over as soon as I told him that it had something to do with Enid. As soon as he arrived, he asked, "What has she done now?" As if she's been causing chaos and havoc all these years. I cannot be surprised. Enid is a storm that wrecks everything in its path. I told him everything that happened from the beginning up until this point. We talked for hours as he told me all that she's done. He and his brother did not speak anymore because of her. I was lost for words at some of the stuff that he told me. And then, the reason why he was here, I still had the cufflinks by some miracle. I'd been wanting to throw them away for years, but once they're out of sight, I forgot about them. I showed him the cufflinks and asked him if they've slept together. He said yes. Then I showed him the picture of Bryce, and he did not protest. He simply nodded gravely as if he's accepting it. I was numb at this point. Tired of feeling anger, tired of feeling betrayal and sadness when it comes to her. He thanked me for telling me, and then he left. As far as I know, he managed to get custody of Bryce, and we've not heard from him ever since. I hope this is the last chapter in the saga of Enid. I cannot take any more of all that she does. Well, Mr. Reddito here. That's all she wrote. Except for this. A mini update just a month later that wraps the entire story up. If you enjoyed the saga of Enid, go ahead and click that subscribe button, and here is your final update. Enid's mom just called. She says that she was released today and she wants to see me. I'm not going there. I'm tired. I've made the mistake of being pulled back into her spider web because I want to save her from herself. I have a wife and a child now to take care of, and Enid is simply my past. Her mom has the nerve. She knew what was happening those years ago and let her daughter ghost me. I called her mom day and night in the first few days until her mother herself blocked me. She didn't tell me where she was, just to put me out of her misery. I don't care that she says now Enid's going insane and realizes what she's done. She needs to realize the consequences of her actions. I've already forgiven her. This is my revenge. So Enid might go down as one of the worst characters in the last month. If it wasn't for Raphael's little brother, who was the father, if he would have denied that child, or maybe if they just couldn't find who it was thanks to OP, that poor little baby would have gone his whole life not knowing who his dad was, what the heck happened in his life, absolutely nothing. And it just seemed like Enid was getting worse and worse. And to top it all off, she then eventually attacked Claire. Guys, let me know your thoughts about that. What would you do if you were OP and you had to deal with this gigantic freaking mistake? My brother wants to propose at my wedding. He gets grandma involved because I think it's the dumbest idea possible. Guys, I know some of you might have heard this story before, but there was just a groundbreaking update that was just released a few days ago, and it's going to blow your socks off. Here it is, once again. I-27 male. I'll start this off by saying my wedding is scheduled for April because my fiancé has always dreamt of a spring wedding. And I really like the idea too. I have an older brother that, 30 male, last Saturday was called over to my parents' house to talk about something, but they refused to tell me until I got there. They then sat me down with my brother and told me that my brother wants to use my wedding as the perfect day for him to propose to his girlfriend. I was instantly mad and told them absolutely not, but they ganged up on me. I ended up so enraged to the point that I, one single man, somehow backed all three of them into the corner. I told them that if they want to do this, they not only will have to all be uninvited, but I also will cut them off the financial support I've been giving them monthly since they paid to have my golden child brother go through college by taking out a second mortgage. I landed a decently high-paying job and have been sending $500 to my parents monthly, just to help ease the burden. And I didn't ask for a stake in the ownership of their house, either, because, well, I really didn't want it. It was entirely goodwill, and I can cut it off at any time. I left without speaking anything more to them, but my brother came to my home the next day to yell at me that I ruined his big chance because now our parents are siding with me, and say they'll evict him if he tries to propose at my wedding. He said I was financially blackmailing our parents, and that he just wanted a good chance to propose because he was afraid his girlfriend might leave him soon. I said that's his problem, not mine, because my wedding day is not about him. And if he tried to propose at my wedding, I will have him thrown out. That's not a maybe, but a definite. And I doubt his girlfriend would appreciate her proposal followed up by being tossed out by a bouncer. He yelled a few choice words at me, then went crying to our only surviving grandparent, our maternal grandmother. And then she called to try to ream me over the phone. No surprise, my brother heavily embellished the version of the story he told her, but she still sides with him after I gave her the real spiel. She tried to hold her ground, but the verbal backlash I ended up giving her left her crying on the phone. That got back to my parents, who were absolutely mad at me for taking things so far. But I told them I only went that far because I had to, when they were all trying to get me to let my brother use my wedding as his springboard for a proposal. They ended up agreeing with me, but still stated that they feel like I'm crass. And my brother showed up at my home again to scream at me that I'm not an a-hole, and I hope I'm happy with myself for not allowing him the opportunity. My fiancée knows what my brother tried to do, and she's very angry about it. She's almost ready to have him uninvited if he pursues this any further. Normally, I have a very mild temper, but when it comes to certain people like my brother, parents, and grandmother, I can easily get short with them because of all the past favoritism. My grandmother especially. She always sides with my brother and believed his lies no matter what he did. She's the biggest reason my parents favored my brother too. She kept trying to convince me over the phone to let my brother propose at my wedding that I ended up losing it on her. I ended up speaking with my brother again and threatened to tell his girlfriend if he was still intending to propose at my wedding without permission. He took it poorly and called me an awful person, so I pointed out that my wedding isn't about him. Our parents were there for this and they backed me up. I think my brother did a double take when they did that, and my dad pointed out that he'd raised my brother all wrong, and that was on him. So from now on, my brother was to show them real respect, and they wanted to get an official lease drawn up for him to pay proper rent and utilities. He was only paying them $300 a month without contributing to any utilities or food. And if he doesn't want to pay, he can move out, and they'll rent his room to somebody else. My brother turned to our mom for help, but she just agreed with Dad. He looked like he was having a conniption and then left the house. He came back a couple hours later but spoke to no one and just locked himself in his room. 2 days into this, my brother announced he was moving in with Grandma because she invited him, and our parents basically told him that if he wants to live with her, then go ahead. My brother responded to this by saying, well, we all hate him for just wanting to propose to his girlfriend. My parents pointed out that it's not that he wants to propose, but where he wants to do it. And he'd get no support for it. He refused to talk to our parents now, and my grandmother did try to call me again, but it ended up with me telling her that my brother will not be allowed to propose at my wedding. Plain and simple. So he can get over it, or not come. And the same goes for her, you know. I ended up calling her out of favoritism towards my brother since we were kids, which she tried to deny at first, but could not keep up doing so because of how much I'd pointed out. She ends up crying again while I told her that if she keeps trying to insist on this, then she won't be coming to my wedding. She begged me not to rescind her invite, but still said that she doesn't understand why I couldn't let my brother have his way before ending the call. My fiancé is 100% on my side, and is fully ready to remove my brother and grandmother from the wedding. My grandmother has not called me yet, not again, and she's not talking to my parents either. My guess is my brother went crying to her again to tell her mommy and daddy weren't enabling him anymore. So, she offered for him to move in with her, but there's literally nothing she can do to sway me. And I think my last conversation with her made her realize that. I didn't wish to tell my brother's girlfriend, but she called me up on a Saturday about my post. She said that she saw it online, realized it might be me with the way I described my brother and grandmother. So, yeah, now she knows. She ends up tearing my brother a new one, and he still tries to justify himself. That's when she told him that they were through and cut all contacts with him. My brother, of course, blamed me, even though his girlfriend said that she's been ready to leave him for a while now, and if he tried to propose no matter where, she'd have been told no. So, that's it. My brother showed up at my place one more time to have a fit and said he's boycotting my wedding. He actually thought he had leverage that he and Grandma won't go. I said I wouldn't miss you, bro, and that he's in his 30s now and just simply needs to grow up. Our parents have cut the umbilical cord and are no longer supporting him, and they're already repainting his room to rent it out to somebody else.
They plan on renting out my old bedroom as well because they need the money after the financial hole he left them in after dropping out of college. Just to mooch off them for a while, and then get a degree with some online college later, and then barely pay any rent while also making them pay for his food, utilities, despite having a good-paying job. They spent the world on him, and he wasn't even the least bit grateful. That made my brother just shut down and leave, and since then we've not heard a peep out of him. That's everything that's happened from my original post up until now.
What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So this story is very interesting. It's updated in a diary-style format, so there's about 4 more updates. We're going to hop into the first one now. I hope you're enjoying it so far. If you are, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you never miss any future upcoming videos. And let's do our best right now to hop into update number 1. Well, my brother and grandma are officially uninvited from my upcoming wedding. My grandma called me again to berate me even more for refusing to let my brother propose. Apparently, he's beside himself with grief over his ex, so yeah. So besides himself with grief that he's already on Tinder looking for a date, or so his social media says, which I pointed out to grandmother. She claimed that this was just the way of coping. I didn't care. He's no longer invited to my wedding because I can't trust that he won't do something crazy. Then she gave me her classic line of, "I don't understand why." That's what she always says when I won't do something for my brother after he'd screw me over. For example, I once gave my brother a loan, back when he was still doing online college. He didn't want to repay it despite promising he would. Even after getting a good job, he hemmed and hawed about it. And when I wanted him to pay me back, he had the money, he just didn't want to give it up. So I said I was never going to loan him money again. And Grandma gave her line of not understanding why. Even when I told her it was because I knew my brother would never want to repay me. So he's not going to get another penny. Her response was to say she still doesn't understand. So just hearing her say that about the issue of my brother being banned from my wedding made me absolutely lose it. I yelled at her that she does understand. She just acts like she doesn't because she doesn't want to. She's always been on my brother's side no matter what he's done, and because of that, she's no longer invited to my wedding either. And I don't care if she cries or boo-hoos, because I'm just plain done with her. She made her bed with the side she chose, and now she can lie in it. Of course, as expected, she exploded in tears, crying like a sad whale that's been beached, and called me a bad grandson. I said she's a bad grandma for thinking I'm the bad grandson when she always believed my brother's lies and played favorites. Everyone else knew it too, and I'm sick of her pretending everything was rosy when she used to beat my butt and then tell me that I'd be a bad boy if I told my parents that she spanked me. I then told her not to call me again unless it was to admit the truth and give me a genuine apology. And then I ended the phone call. It went right back to the radio silent from her. I also preemptively told my parents about what went down, and their response was that they don't care I yelled at her anymore, because it's obvious she's always just going to be siding with my brother no matter what. My parents are actually doing so much better since my brother moved out. They've got 2 rooms ready to rent out and on the market waiting for a tenant. My dad is also working on clearing out the attic to make another room up there for someone to rent. They're basically turning as many rooms in their house as they can into a livable space. They're gonna need that rent money to help pay off all their debt. And they're still thanking me a lot for helping them with the money that I've been sending monthly. My parents sat me down a while ago and apologized heavily for everything that went on from my childhood until now. They said that they can offer no good excuse as to why my brother was their favorite, and also when they should not have been playing favorites at all, and that what they did was completely unacceptable and they know it now, and the fact that I was still willing to help them out, even after everything they've done,
made them realize how horrible they were as parents. And from now on, they're going to do their best to be better people. They've basically stopped caring about what my brother and grandma think too. They haven't been talking to them either. I've heard nothing from my brother's ex. She wants nothing more to do with my family, and I don't blame her. My fiancé is a super happy person about me standing my ground, because she wanted my brother and grandmother out way sooner. Then she admitted something to me I absolutely never knew. Apparently, the few times she was alone with Grandma, she was told all sorts of wild, outrageous lies about me that my fiancé never believed for a second. I mean, she couldn't really recall much of them, but basically Grandma said a number of things that I remember my brother did that were pinned on me. But the gist of it is that my grandmother was trying to tell my fiancé that I was a bad egg as a child, and that she's better watching me closely in case she decides not to marry me. So, yeah, Grandma was trying to poison the well with more lies. Here's one story my fiancé remembered my grandma talking about. It's one I knew right away. It was the story about the broken lamp. My grandma used to have a beautiful hand-grafted stained glass lamp. My brother threw a football in the house straight at it, and the lamp fell and broke. It was old, it was frail, so it basically shattered into a million pieces. My brother said that I was throwing the football in the house, and he tried to stop me, but it was actually the other way around, and Grandma refused to believe me and spanked me bare-bottomed with a wooden spoon. My grandpa knew my brother was lying, as he always threw the football, and even told my parents so. My brother was grounded, and I was told I didn't have to visit Grandma anymore if I didn't want to. And after my grandfather passed away, I stopped going. The fact that that old person was still talking about this stuff to people like my fiancé when I'm not even around absolutely infuriates me. So, I'm beyond glad that I've cut the tumors that are my brother and grandmother out of my life. I don't need them anymore. Update number 2. Brother found my post and is fuming, but I don't care. Well, my brother came pounding on my front door once again a few days ago, and this time he was absolutely drunk. He drunkenly told me he found out about the post because he tried to get back together with his ex, and she told him how she found out what he was planning. So this dummy thought it'd be a good idea to get wasted and then confront me. He even vomited on my porch step, and then did something I didn't see coming. He curled up on the ground and started crying like a baby. I figured he was going to attack me or something, because he was acting absolutely deranged, but instead, he just got in a sort of fetal position and cried in the grass, while blaming me for his problems in between swigs from the bottle he was carrying. From what I could get out of him, he recently went to his ex and just begged her to take him back. However, she told him that he was a man-child and she never wanted to marry him. And then he explained how she knew he was planning on proposing. He went home, searched online till he found my post and read every single one, word for word. He went through every comment on my prior post as well, and when he realized next to nobody saw things from his point of view, he broke his computer, smashed his monitor, and started pounding a bottle of vodka while walking over to my house, since I do only live a couple miles away. While he was sitting on the ground, he was drunkenly cussing at me and saying it's my fault that everyone but Grandma hates him now. I had no sympathy for him and told him he did all this to himself. Sure, I aired our dirty laundry online by telling everybody, sure, but he was still the entitled jerk who never really grew up and goes crying to Granny like a spoiled brat when he doesn't get his way. Time to grow up. Man up, dude. He called me a few more things that I could barely understand coherently, and then pretty much stopped talking just to sit there and keep drinking and crying like a baby. I ended up taking away what was left of his bottle of vodka and said that maybe when he's sober, he can come see me with some common sense. Then I called for a taxi to take him home. I wasn't about to drive to Grandma's house because I don't want to see or be anywhere near her. My brother didn't even thank me for calling and paying for the taxi, just flopped himself in the back seat and told the driver to get going. I got a call the next day from the taxi service stating my brother had vomited multiple times in the back seat in the short time he was in the cab, and it took $200 to thoroughly clean it because it was everywhere. I apologized and mailed them a check for their trouble. It's been a few days since that happened, but the crap did not end there. Oh no. So, I'll be making another post very soon. Update number 3. My grandmother says I've destroyed her. I knew it. I just knew it. And some of you called it. My grandma couldn't leave well enough alone. She and my brother were already both uninvited from my upcoming wedding and borderline ghosted. But now she's gone and made a huge scene about it. She took my brother over to my parents' house to show them my post. Thing is, my parents already know about it and have read them because I've admitted it to them after my brother drunkenly came to my home to yell at me. And my parents no longer care because the situation opened their eyes some time ago. I wasn't there to see it, but my grandma laid it on thick to my parents about how she's been thoroughly humiliated and that she didn't understand why I do this over something so trivial as my brother proposing at my upcoming wedding. Well, this next part I never expected. My mom, ever the passive doormat to her mother for as long as I can remember, finally lost it on old grandmother about how she's a narcissist and how her influence made her and father seem like ones too. And they were idiots to let that ever happen. Then they told Grandma and my brother that the whole wanted to propose at my wedding thing was a complete stupid and selfish idea, and then reiterated reasons I've stated as to why it's so stupid, with I likely being my brother wanting to put his ex on the spot in front of the whole wide family. Then my parents told them to both just get out. My brother especially, they admonished because he'd used them as a basic ATM for years, barely contributing financially after landing a very good job. And then me, the son they'd regretfully ignored, was someone they were far more proud of because I've helped them start to undo the damage they've done to themselves. And thus far, I've asked for nothing in return. Grandma, I'm told, left in hysterics and told my brother, who was silent most of the time. The next part is from my own experience as Grandma called me again to yell. I let her have her rant while my fiancé and I just let the phone sit on the coffee table, of course, while on speaker mode. After a while, Grandma realized I wasn't saying anything back and yelled at me to speak to her. So I said something one of the commenters I've read here pointed out in a prior post, that she's a coward who thinks she's in charge, but she's not and never will be. She can't boss me around. She has nothing to leverage over me, and she always acts like she doesn't understand my reasoning when I know she does. But she doesn't even care to admit it. Then I called her out on her blatant lies that she's spewing everywhere about me and my fiancé, which Grandma immediately denies. But then my fiancé spoke up and said that she's told me everything Grandma had said. Then asked why she would do that. Did she not want me to be married and happy or something? And that's when it came out. Grandma yelled that she was just mad I'm getting married before my brother. She'd wanted to see him married first because he's older, and, of course, her favorite grandson, and she believed that the least I could have done was to let my brother try to save his relationship by proposing at my wedding. I said, that wasn't trying to have a relationship or save it. That was trying to trap that poor woman in one by hoping she wouldn't say no in front of a crowd. But I've already spoken to my brother's ex before she cut contact with all of us, and I know for certain she'd said no to him anyways, and she'd been ready to break up with him for months. I doubt the relationship would have even lasted long enough to make it to the wedding. Then I said I knew she was going to call me selfish. So I pointed out all the things to her to make me selfish and me not selfish. I'm helping out my parents financially when I didn't have to. I didn't ask her for money from anyone when I went off to college. I actually worked hard at my relationship with my significant other and did not scheme to try to find a way to take control of it. While my grandma would rather spew out any reason she can think of to make my brother the golden boy who can do no wrong. She lied about me just to try to ruin my relationship in her hopes that my brother would marry first. And she openly admitted to having a favorite grandson. Now that's selfish. Then I said that if it turned out my brother had been in love with my fiancé or something, I bet she would have demanded I give her to my brother as well, because that's just the kind of selfish narcissist that she is. Then all I could hear on the line was grandmother loudly sobbing, and my brother trying to console her. He didn't even say anything to me and then hung up the phone. Either by him or her, I don't know, but I think it's fair to say I really verbally tore Grandma apart this time, much more so than I ever had before. And yes, this time I finally blocked her number, and my brother's too. Update. Brother wanted to propose at my wedding. Taxes, wedding bells, and insanity. Well, it's been a ride. A fair bit's happened since my last post, so I thought it's best to wait until I'm married and settled in after my honeymoon to speak to everybody. Firstly, I want to say that I don't know crap about taxes other than I pay them, but someone here questioned how I could write off the money I was given to my parents monthly for their mortgage, and I honestly thought that I could, but a person who actually does taxes contacted me and said that wasn't possible. Or at the very least shouldn't be possible since I don't have a partial ownership of the home. And that made me curious that I may be breaking the law. Well, I looked into it. A long story short, the person who was doing my taxes before no longer is. I took my questions to the owner of the tax firm and explained to him that the guy who was doing my taxes was getting me a roughly 1/3 write-off on the money I was paying to my parents monthly. Well, the owner said he'd recheck my records himself and said that he'd call me later. Took a few days, but he told me that the guy who was doing my taxes did a few things that he should not have done, and that he had a previous record of doing this. The firm fired him, and the owner apologized profusely and asked me not to take my business elsewhere. I believe in supporting local business and shop from them when I can, so I told him that as long as my record is clean, I'll stay with them. And he assured me that he'll make sure everything's fine. I do find it stupid the owner didn't fire my former tax guy after his first offense. And I get the feeling he kind of rug swept a lot of things. But he's assured me that my taxes will be done by him personally from now on, so I'm going to give him the chance to make everything right. Since my last post, my parents have managed to rent out both their spare rooms. Both tenants are young women who are their first-time renters, and they've each taken a room. Both are pleasant enough, but I've barely spoken to them. My parents say they're pretty good tenants, so we'll see how everything goes. My father has also begun remodeling the attic and the other room that they can eventually rent too. It's going to be a slow process as he doesn't have a lot of time to work on it, unless it's the weekends, but he's determined to get it done. Now, on to the period before my wedding. Well, my grandma went mental. Apparently, after I told her over the phone about a month ago, she went off her rocker, even further, and actually lashed out at my brother, which is something I thought she'd never do with how much she enables him and loves him. After about a week, a neighbor heard all the commotion and ended up going to check on her, and she attacked him over it. So, police were called, and took Grandma into custody for a psych evaluation, and she tried to attack one of the officers as well. But she's a frail little old lady with false teeth.
Not a lot she can do, one of them. My parents went in to see her, but visitors weren't permitted until the 3 days were over. And when they were, my parents met with her and told me that she was hamming it up, playing the victim, and trying to get my parents back on her side. My mother said Grandma was still blaming me, and also saying that she still had a right to be at my wedding. Well, my mother let her have it, by saying that she lost that right after everything she said and did. All the lies, all the gaslighting, and being mad at me for something as petty as getting married before my man-child older brother that she outright said was her favorite grandson? Meanwhile, my brother was chilling in her house because he had it all to himself until grandmother was allowed to return. Don't have much information from that point since my parents didn't bother to see grandma or my brother again thus far. Next is my wedding. The outdoor venue my wife and I picked was absolutely beautiful. There was a good-sized man-made pond with a paddle boat, and plenty of wild ducks and frogs. Though the ducks came right up to the people begging for food. We brought some loaves of cheap wheat bread so the kids in the family could just toss to the ducks. The venue was also near a golf course, so kids were having fun hunting for lost golf balls like they're Easter eggs. They actually found a lot of them. That was some good, wholesome fun. Yeah, I did have security there, and yes, my grandma did show up and tried to get in. Even though her invitation had been officially rescinded, she still had the paper, one that she's gotten in the mail since she's refused to return it after being uninvited. Though my brother wasn't with her. She drove 200 miles herself just to try to get into my wedding. She showed up acting sweet, but then turned into a devil when the guard refused her entry. She screamed out my name and demanded to be let in, and she refused to leave until she spoke to me, until security threatened the police. She ended up screaming at him and then waddling back to her car, and that was it. But this was not the end of the story. Oh no! Because now that the only person still talking to Grandma was my older brother, I guess she starts taking things out on him. No family scapegoats left for her to yell at, so she starts going crazy on my brother, since he was now under her roof. I know this because he sent me a letter since I've blocked him on everything, but it was through snail mail. I got the letter after coming back from the honeymoon. It was a letter with a mix of apologies and blaming. He said he was sorry for wanting to propose at my wedding and sees how crummy it is now, and it would have been a disaster. And that I was right about him being underhanded and trying to ask his ex to marry him in front of so many people. But then said he was angry he didn't get to go to my wedding. Because I couldn't just overlook his traumas. Then he said he was sorry for letting Grandma treat me the way she did for oh so long, because now he's getting some of that himself. Then blamed me again for getting Grandma so worked up in the first place over yelling at her and then not letting her go to the wedding. Then went on the blame scheme for me and our parents kicking him out of the house and being stuck with Grandma because she's driving him up the wall. Let's be honest, guys, they didn't kick him out, he left when they wanted him to pay rent properly. So now he's apartment hunting. He did apparently ask my parents to move back in with them, but they outright refused and told him to get his own place. And that's about it on that. On a side note, though, my brother's ex-girlfriend still has not reached out or spoken to anyone in my family since she last spoke with me. Not that I blame her, I barely knew her anyways, and we have no mutual friends. I checked her social media recently though, and she seems just fine without my brother in her life. So if she reads this, I'll just say, good for you. Live well, don't ever let crazies like my brother back in your life again. And to my brother, whom I know will likely read this, and soon, get a life, man. Stop blaming your crap on me and grow up. You're on your own now, and the rest of us are gonna hold you up anymore. Yeah, right. And if you do manage to date again, don't screw it up like last time. You and I both know why things didn't work out with your ex,
And I hope you realize now that running to Grandma and getting drunk won't help you anymore when you're 30 years of age. The world doesn't revolve around you. Let it go, bro. As for me, my honeymoon was absolutely fantastic. We went on the road and made it all the way to the coast. My wife also insisted we go cycling in the wind. I'm not much of a bicycle rider, but it was fun to go a couple miles down the coasting road. Ended up dead tired though, and need to get in better shape ASAP. Anyways, I'd like to thank everyone here for listening to me and offering their advice. It really helped. What's up, everybody? So it seems like the story is over there. Mr. Reddito here. I hope you guys enjoyed that saga, but it's not over. Now, it's time for the update that came out a whole year later. That's right, a new, fresh update 1 year later. Here it is. I know the post I made last year was supposed to be the end, but I just wanted to tell this last bit now that it's all over. This compiles some events that happened from then to just recently. At first, my brother and grandmother only got worse. My grandmother turned into a crying wail again when my brother told her that he was moving out. Then he had the gall to ask for mine and our parents' help to move his stuff because Grandma was saying she wouldn't let him leave. But our parents just reminded him of the crap that he's done to end up in his current predicament. And rather than act like a rational human being, he decided that he'd do just the opposite. He blamed me for ruining his life again, and my father told me he actually busted a gut laughing at my brother when he said that. Then laid into my brother over how he was blaming his own crap on me. And my 30-year-old brother curled up in a chair crying. He refused to leave our parents' house that night and stayed curled up on the couch with a bottle of booze until the next day, in which he was kicked out by our parents with a raging hangover. Our father told him he needs to apologize to me for real, face to face, and that they'll no longer consider him their son if he doesn't. Well, it took my brother a couple of days, but he showed up at my place with a piece of paper in hand, and this man read out an apology. He pre-written it, and he said he was so sorry for everything he's done. He's been a crappy person and even crappier brother. He looked for any way he possibly could in his own head to make me the bad guy. But the excuses just aren't there anymore. He can't ever undo the things he did, but he wants to move forward and try to mend our relationship as siblings. Starting with, getting out of grandmother's house. He told me he understands why none of us want to be there and that he'll hire help. We ended up shaking hands and having a hug. And thus far, he's actually been working hard to improve himself, even cutting down on his drinking by a lot. As for Grandma, she did try to keep my brother from moving out, and she refused to let the movers he hired in. He had to get the help of the police officers to keep her at bay. Then they only had to move out of one's room worth of stuff, and with the movers and my brother working at it, it just only took them a little bit. They had it out in record time. My grandma ended up threatening to unalive herself while he was leaving. Or so my brother said, but I'm pretty sure that was the exact truth because she did actually try. But in the most attention-seeking way possible. She took a bunch of pills and then called the emergency services on herself. They took her to the hospital and got her stomach pumped, which was a bit redundant as she's thrown up before the ambulance even arrived. But they wanted to be sure. My parents ended up getting APS involved as Grandma ended up another psych hold, only this time in a hospital bed. During her stay, they did several tests on her because she avoided doctors for years, and she was found to be in bad health. Her kidney function was low, her lungs weren't in very good shape, and she was at a very heavy risk of diabetes. So, Grandma had to be put in a care facility. For her own health and safety, at least. If actually, it didn't surprise me, she was a little woman but had some weight on her, and all her teeth had to come out when she was in her 50s because the only thing she would drink is soda pop. and she ate a crapload of sugary food. She loved chocolate candy. She also used to be a heavy smoker in her younger years, and I guess that did some lasting damages to her lungs. She'd been having breathing trouble for some time, but somehow hid it from us. Doctors found that she needs to be put on oxygen right away, and that she can't live alone anymore. She wanted my brother to come back and become her full-time caregiver, but he refused and said that he just can't do it. He's got his own life to live, and he's going to make a lot of making up to do for the rest of us. Well, my grandma went crazy, crying everywhere and throwing things in the hospital while screaming at us bloody murder to get out. After she was out of the hospital, my parents worked very hard to have grandmother put into a care home. They moved a few of her personal belongings into a room, and they tried to make her more comfortable, but that didn't really do much of anything. She was there all week and said she was incredibly miserable. All the employees treated her like a child, and she had to have an oxygen breather attached to her at all times. She also said she hated being there because, in her words, the place was filled with old people, and she hated being reminded that she's old too and would rather just be alone. She was there nearly a month before trying to unalive herself again by refusing to wear her oxygen breather and saying she'd rather hurt herself with the tube. So, they had to put her on close observation 24/7, which only made her even more miserable. Each time we saw her, she begged us, even begged me, to take her out of there. She misses home. She missed her old life, but she wasn't going anywhere because she was considered a danger to herself. Well, eventually she just seemed to accept her fate that she would spend the rest of her life in that care facility. And my grandma pretty much just shut down. She became this bitter old woman that hardly talks to anybody. We came and visit her regularly, but she was never happy to see us, especially me. And the months just blurred together with this routine, and things seemed to change a little when we were told my wife was pregnant. She did perk up at that. My wife reluctantly let her feel her belly when we visit, and that did seem to make it her day. If anything, it made Grandma a bit nicer to all of us, but she was generally still mean old self. Then some time ago, we found out Grandmother had a stroke and passed away in her sleep. The funeral was a bit lackluster. My mother was really the only one who cried. Most of us were just really quiet the whole time. And then we had a small family reunion at my parents' house, but if anyone here was thinking we'd be singing Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, well, no. It was mostly just awkward conversations, as a lot of us didn't have much good things to say about her. And she already passed away, so what good would it do any of us to talk about how toxic of a person she was in life when she's no longer here to defend it? So, there wasn't much to do but stand around and get absolutely drunk. And get drunk we did. But it was more like a party full of sad, quiet drunks, everyone dressed in black and gulping down beer or wine. Anytime someone wanted to do something fun, it just got really awkward, till they shut down or shut up and decided to stay quiet or leave. And my wife wasn't there since she stayed home after the funeral because she couldn't drink and didn't want to be surrounded by drunk people. My brother, well, he's showing some genuine improvement. Grandma was his biggest enabler. She's no longer with us. He's applied for therapy last year to try and better understand himself and make a better effort to change. For now, he's trying to help out our father with remodeling the attic in his spare time, and things are still awkward between us anytime we see each other. Right now, I can't say how things will go in the long run, but without Grandma's toxicness, hopefully everything will change for the better. As for Grandma's estate, well, her will was surprisingly fair. We were all certain my brother would get every single thing since he was the favorite. But instead, my parents got her house, and they're working to get it ready to be rented out. The rest of Grandma's money and assets were pretty much evenly distributed. Well, mostly. I didn't get much, but I don't want it either. I'm doing fine. I didn't need it. I guess that concludes everything.
It just seems like the brother was never going to change. Here's one of the top comments. I know a few people like this, in their 30s or 40s, well until adulthood, who consistently blame their faults on their past. I only cheated because my mom didn't hug me enough. Or, no one ever taught us in school how to file taxes. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. It's not your fault a friend took advantage of your kindness, but it's your responsibility now to set boundaries. It's not your fault a baby's left on your doorstep, but it's your responsibility to take care of it. You get the idea. Childish people do this, and they suck. So, that's a little bit of advice. Let me know your thoughts about this story. Guys, drop it down below. I found out my manager at work gave away my promotion, and he's nothing more than a two-timing snake. So this is what I'm going to do to get him back. Oh yeah, and it involves his wife. I started working at a shipping company 3 years after my graduation from college. Those 3 years were heck on earth. Some of my professors promised to get me a stable job out of college, but the narrative changed after I graduated. No job could be found for me, and so I did anything I could to lay my hands upon one. I worked at a barbing salon in a ghetto area, but was fired after 3 months. I helped at a construction site, helped about 2 companies advertise products, but as a temporary staff. They just couldn't keep me because they didn't have enough resources to have several permanent staff members. Just when I was about to give up on searching for a job and going back to college to pick up a master's degree, I finally found a permanent job. I could remember that morning. I'd spoken to one of my professors that day before that I was coming to campus to pick up a master's form. I felt that if I took my education just one step further, then I'd stand a better chance of getting a good and permanent job. I was just getting ready for the step out of my house and be on my way to campus when a friend called me that there was an interview I had to go to. I told him that my chances of getting a job there was quite slim, but he urged me to go nevertheless. So I went and, well, I got the job. My first year at the shipping company was quite brutal. The term brutal isn't right here, more like just really stressful. I spent extra hours at the office just so I could be on my boss's favorable side. I did all that I could to not get fired. More than that, I wanted a promotion so badly. I felt like I did more than any other staff member at the company that year, but I just did not get anywhere near it. The first time I went to the company for an interview, I was given a low-grade position. I informed the human resource officer that the position did not befit me because I had more skills to offer. However, I was told that if I put in more work the first year, that I'd get a promotion before the end of the year. The first year ended and there was still no promotion for me. I told my manager about it and he said I had to keep on being patient and put in more effort to my work. I agreed and kept at it. The first and second year ended yet there and still no promotion for me. At that point, I contemplated getting another job elsewhere, but my manager just urged me to stay. He said I should hold on a little longer, that I would be getting a promotion pretty soon. Well, I did wait. Even though I got an offer for a job elsewhere, I decided to stay back and had good faith that enough, I'd be getting my promotion and a fat paycheck soon. In fact, my manager put me in another department, a somewhat larger department, but my paycheck still remained the same. He said that it was just temporary and soon enough I'd be getting an increase in my pay. He also said that wasn't exactly the department he wanted to place me in, that he just wanted to test my input in a different department, before he actually gave me an official promotion, and I agreed. I kept at it and went to get on my 3rd year at the shipping company. I became really frustrated again. This time, I'd already written my resignation letter and was about to drop it at my manager's office when he finally told me I've gotten a promotion, an official one. I was excited and within the next month tried all my best to make sure I met up to expectations. However,
At the end of the month, manager only added a few dollars to the morning that I've previously earned as a low-grade staff. I complained about it, and he said that the pay was available for the time and that hopefully the succeeding months would be better. Well, it never did. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So I have multiple updates for this story, but update number 1 might have a bombshell for you guys. It came out 6 months after the original post and 6 months after the manager called to give the promotion letter. Well, let's go ahead and see what's going on in update number 1. Hey guys, it's been 6 months since the manager called me to give my promotion letter and have promised a massive increasement in my salary. But I was yet to see anything except a few dollars he added to my salary. I was getting more confused and angry by the day. My friends have already advised me to leave the company and go seek employment somewhere else, even if it was a startup, but I was considering so many things. First, I've been in the company for almost 4 years now, and I've invested so much in it that I couldn't just pack my bags to leave. Secondly, this was my dream company, and if I could build my career for just a 4 more years, it would give me enough experience to start up my own, but again, I needed money. My siblings know I'm working in a reputable company, and they've always demanded so much, especially in their academics. I also need to save up to take care of any needs and to buy drugs for my mom, in addition to her checkup every month. It was just a lot, and really, I was really confused on what to do and how to really approach the matter, but something had to be done. I knew that. I then decided to confront my manager once again, and if he did not say what I wanted to hear for the last time, I decided I'm going to walk away and leave everything behind to start afresh because I couldn't just continue this way. I decided to wait to the closing period of the day when everyone had gone home to confront him. I waited in my small office till I thought everyone would have gone home, and when I assumed he will still be in his office, he had also left. How did I miss him? I was so vividly angry. He usually waited till everyone had gone before he left, but the secretary was still even around as I saw her come from the storeroom. "You haven't gone?" she asked, staring at me vehemently. "I thought you always left immediately the clock ticks home." "No." "You're right. I decided to stay. Actually, I was waiting for the manager and I was surprised that he already left. He's usually the last person to leave, just wondering why he left early." "Oh, he said his son has a match and he promised him he'll be there, so I guess that's why he left early." I see. Thank you," I said as I turned back to my office to pick my bag up and head for home. I could not stop thinking about what the secretary said. So, he really had a loving part to him where he could go ahead to watch his son play, and he'd been posting my promotion for years. And even when he eventually gave it, it was still the same thing. I just couldn't fathom it. There must be something he wasn't telling me, and I needed to find out what it was because my whole life depends on this promotion. Especially the money. So, it was best to know what's up. I left the office and went home, and I came much earlier than I normally would the following morning, hoping to catch him in his office since he comes early too. Luckily for me, his office door wasn't locked, and I knocked. I heard a reluctant, "Oh, come in." "Good morning, sir." "Oh, do you have a seat?" he said as a reply to my cheerful greeting. "So much for a good morning." I wanted to see you yesterday after closing, but your secretary said that you went to your kid's game." "Oh yeah, I promised him I would come watch him. I didn't want to disappoint him." "I see. I actually came to discuss further about my work here." Immediately that I said that, I saw his countenance change. I knew he would not want to talk about it, but I needed to know where I stand once and for all.
"Oh, what about it?"
"Well, 6 months ago, you gave me the promotion, and you've been promising me for years, and even changed my office, but there's been an increase in pay. You've asked me to be patient, and in all fairness, I've been patient. In fact, my patience is overdue, but you haven't fulfilled your part of the bargain. And I just wanted us to come to a conclusion on what to do and what step to take next." Well, I watched his body language become reluctant. He started shifting uncontrollably, and then he looked up and said, "Look, I know you've been working with us for a long time, and I know that you've put in a lot for this company. It's not the company, it's not willing to increase your pay, but the company has been having some financial issues. Although, I'm not really supposed to be telling you all these things, but the financial issues are so bad that the company's considering retrenching some staff, and I've just submitted the names to the CEO. Don't worry, your name's not among, because I know how much of an asset you are to us, and how much you have endured for the company, so I can't allow such a disaster near you.
The news I was hearing from the manager sounded so shocking. Retrenching staffs? Oh my gosh. I didn't know how to react. Should I be happy the manager did not put my name up for the retrenching? Or should I still be unhappy with my current salary? This was some news, and I definitely was not expecting, and I was just so confused on how to react to it. It seemed as if he were reading my thoughts completely.
Listen, I know you weren't expecting this, Julian, but there's nothing we can do about your salary for now, and I hope you know you're not the only thing that this is affecting. It's affecting all the staff, me inclusive, so it's really just out of my hands. The only thing I can promise is that after the retrenching, it's possible the CEO considers the increment of the remaining staff. That's only what I can promise right now. To get jobs now is not easy, so I'd advise you to think about this deeply.
Promises. That's all I ever hear from this man, but he's right in a way. To get a job was not all that easy, and I needed to stick up to it, the one that I have, even if I wanted to be on a lookout for another. It's okay, sir. I'll hold on to the job, and I hope you stay true to your word for the increment once everything begins to fall back into place.
I will, Julian. Everything will be fine. You'll be duly compensated.
Well, I thanked them and stood up to leave. Update number 2, 2 weeks later. It's been 2 weeks since I went to discuss my work status with Mr. Sam, and those weeks have been the most confusing for me. Should I leave? Should I wait? I don't know. I spoke about this issue with my girlfriend Vivian and my best friend Derek. Vivian advised me to mount up to the boldness to leave and probably come to meet with her in Canada, where she believes could be a new possibility for me to start a new life. Derek, however, advised me to wait and watch how things unfold. He said that the situation might become favorable to me in no time. As much as the two options were tempting, I needed to figure out what works best for me. Vivian asking me to quit and explore other opportunities isn't a bad idea, but I couldn't leave my mom because of her health. She needed to be taken care of by me, especially since the twins are still in college, and I don't have so much to hire a caretaker for her. So that rules Vivian's options out for now, and for Derek. His idea feels safe for me, but to what end? What if everything doesn't get sorted out quickly? What'll happen to me next? I just need to figure it out, and one day, while speaking to one of my coworkers, he mentioned he would be traveling for the weekend, hence he asked his friends to cover up for him.
You work weekends?
I asked, trying to get some more information from him. Yeah, I'm actually surprised you don't. You're always laminating on how you need extra money, he said while readjusting his hat. I don't, but what if Mr. Sam finds out? Are you sure it's legal?
I'm pretty sure it is. We've signed to always be present during weekdays and in the company. Mr. Sam rarely calls us during the weekends, and when he does, I just find someone to cover my shift. It's really not that deep, dude.
The conversation just opened my eyes to another possible idea. I should have thought about it before. How come I never thought of it? I could look for a company to work for as a casual staff on weekends. That would earn me more money without actually quitting my current job. I decided to ask if there was any vacancy where he currently worked.
There isn't, Julian. I'm sorry, but you could just check in for some positions. Hopefully there could be some vacancies.
I was so happy about that thought. That meant I had hope for making more money. I went back to my office and put a call through to Vivian. She answered on the second ring. Babe, are you okay? You're calling me at work. Viv, I'm sorry, but I think I found a way out of this, I said with much excitement. Really? Are you coming to Canada? She also replied with excitement. I'm not. Oh, she replied as if her excitement had been cut short. Viv, we've been discussing this already. I can't leave work at this period. My mom and siblings need me here. And I don't? I know you do, but I need to figure out some things and put things into place. Then, when the twins finish and are back fully with Mom, I'll be able to relocate wherever. I know it's hard, but I really need you to understand." She said as she sighed. "I understand you, but you know how I feel. It's not easy being here without you," she said. "I know it's not. I promise everything will be fixed soon." "Okay, but what if there is a way out then?" "Well, I've decided to work weekends." "Really? That actually makes sense. Have you figured out where?" "No, not really. I just haven't asked around yet." "Okay, but wait. Do you remember Sandra, my friend?" Yeah, I do. Who wouldn't remember that big mouth Sandra? I haven't forgotten her for the insulting me that one day." "Well, listen, dummy. You need to forgive her because you might need her help. Her husband Bill has a company and has some openings right now for casual and weekend staff. I saw the ad a few days ago, and I think you'll be a good fit for the job."
Wow. Will you put in a good word for me?
"Definitely. Sandra will convince her husband he's like a puppet in his hands. He's willingly oblige."
Guess I should forgive Sandra anyways, right?
"You should. I'll call you later to check how it goes. I have to go. Bye. Love you."
Love you too, as I said, cut the call.
It seemed good. I was looking forward to Viv's call, and I hope it went well for all that it's worth. Update number 3. It's been a month that I've resumed the B to O as a weekend staff. When Viv called me back that Sandra said to send my CV, I was happy I was going to be considered, and I got a congratulatory mail from Bill himself. The thought of making more money was everything to me because that was my priority then. The first day I resumed there, it was surreal. The environment, the staff, and the pay, most importantly. When I heard my salary, I was in awe. It was almost up to my salary in the company where I fully worked, so it was unbelievable. I would honestly say that I loved working there than my present company, and I always looked forward to going there. And I've even managed to make a friend, Joe. He works for an auditing company and was also looking for ways to make some more money so he can pay off his student loans. We often discuss about so many things, and one of those days, we were discussing about our bosses. I wouldn't say I normally discuss about my boss to someone I just met a month ago, but we shared a kindred spirit, and for some reason, it did not sound like gossiping. It actually sounded right. Assuming Mr. Sam had given me the promotion when he ought to and increased my pay, I wouldn't have needed the extra job, you know.
Yeah, I get that, bud. Did you say Mr. Sam?
Yeah, do you know him?
Julian, there's a lot of people bearing Sam, but what does he look like?
Short, clean-shaven. He often puts a blue pin in the corner of his mouth.
He slightly staggers while walking.
"Oh yeah, that's him, Mr. Sam. How do you know him?" I asked, surprised.
Well, I've known him for a long time. He used to be my older brother's friend in school before he died. It's a complicated story, but I knew they stopped being friends before his death.
"Oh, I'm sorry about your brother."
"Oh, it's fine. It's been a while, but I think I remember what caused their quarrel."
"I would love to hear it."
"Well, back then in high school, my brother and his friend, Mr. Sam, inclusive, decided to contribute some money to doing something for school. I can't remember the details, but I knew it was very important, because my brother and his friends were always coming to our house to hold the meeting. I thought it had to do with the football team, because my brother was the captain then. When the time for account of the money was near, they couldn't find Mr. Sam, who was the one of the money being paid to. They started searching for him in his parents' home to everywhere, and he usually visits, but he wasn't anywhere to be found. His parents claim they've also haven't seen him since he dropped a note for them telling them that he had to go somewhere for a while. It took a while to find him, but they eventually did, and like I said, I can't remember the exact details because it was still then, but I remember he was arrested by his friends demanding the money from them after claiming he was robbed. He eventually confessed that he spent the money because he wanted to have a bit of fun, and he was sorry. To my memory, I think my brother wanted to let go, but the others demanded he repaid them all the money, or he'll be charged for court of theft. His parents had to raise the money for my brother and his friends. Eventually, after he was bailed out, my brother cut ties with him and told him to never show his face in front of him again. It was a really terrible because, well, they were friends. But my brother said he could not be friends with a thief.
Wow, that's quite terrible. How could he do that to his own friends? Why couldn't he just tell them he needed money if it was for a genuine reason?
Oh yeah, that's the point. He didn't have any good reason for it, he just did it. He's simply a thief.
The conversation I had with Bryce changed all the narrative about him.
He was a thief. He used to be a thief. How then did he get employed as a manager at the company? And if he's been caught once to be a thief, has he changed totally?
He also told me some members of staff would be retrenched, and that had not happened.
Could he be a liar too?
I had so much to find out, I needed to unravel it. Update number 4 1 week later. Well, it's been a week since I started the investigation of Mr. Sam. So far, I've not really found anything useful. Nobody seemed to really know much about him except the fact that he was a family friend to the CEO, and that explained why he was employed despite his past record. He must have showed the CEO he was genuine for him to climb this up. It was almost unbelievable. I needed to find out what was going on, and I needed to do it discreetly without anyone suspecting. I knew the CEO had been out the country for a while. Information from people said he was building another branch of the company and he needed to monitor it. So I tried to get his number from the secretary, and even though I told her it was for official purpose, I eventually got it. I called him immediately and I got home that day. His number went straight to voicemail. I tried it several times, but it kept going straight to voicemail. I went to my mom to give her drugs, then I went to bed. I was awoken by my phone ringing. It was an international number and I picked it up.
Oh, hello, who is this?
I asked, half asleep.
Oh, hey, you left a message for me telling me to return your call. This is Mr. Benjamin.
I jerked off totally from sleep. Hi, Mr. Ben. This is Julian Adrian. I'm a member of your staff.
Oh, Julian, I think I remember you now. What can I do for you?
Oh, I actually need to see you, sir. I needed to discuss something very important with you. I know you're out of the country, but it's quite urgent.
I won't be in the country till the next 2 months. I'm still quite busy here with the construction of the new company, as you must have heard about. So it's better just to discuss it here and now.
This was my chance to ask, and I hadn't prepared to ask over the phone, but it was now or never.
I needed to do it now.
Mr. Ben, I'm having some concerns about the company. Mr. Sam doesn't know about this because I wanted to be discreet. I know Mr. Sam said you wanted to retrench some members of the staff because...
Wait, retrench?
Mr. Ben almost shouted over the phone. Yes, sir. He said you were aware. Are you not?
I'm not aware. Why would he say such? Did he tell you why?
Yes, sir. He said the company is in some financial crisis of some sort, and that's why you haven't promoted me in a while and increased my salary, and the remaining members of staff either.
Really? I've increased the salary of my staff twice in the past 3 years. Are you sure about this?
Yes, sir. I'm definitely sure.
Then I need to call him and ask him.
No, sir, wait. This man has deceived people and humiliated you, sir. We need to find a way, sir. I have a plan. And then I went ahead and told him my plan. This man must be humiliated, and I decided to see to it. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So update number 5 is a juicy one. It came out 5 days after the phone call to Mr. Benjamin. Let's go ahead and jump into update number 5. Here it is. It's been 5 days that I've set my plan to motion. I've decided to humiliate him in the worst way possible. Just confronting him would simply not be enough, so I needed to find out for sure what he's been doing with the money he's been embezzling. He must be squandering it somehow or somewhere, and judging from his past record, he could have used it to have a bit of fun. I was just wondering how. I decided to find out. My friend Bryce was involved in hacking and tapping of the phones, and as much as I detested it, I needed his help to tap his phone. I needed to know who he was speaking to. Probably there was a woman involved. There's always a woman involved. It was quite difficult to do, but my friend successfully hacked his phone, being the good hacker that he was. We could see his contacts, phone logs, incoming and outgoing calls from Bryce's system. I told Bryce to give me an update if there's any drastic changes. Well, he called me one day at home, and there was an update. I rushed off into my car to meet him at the house. Bryce, what did you see? I asked as soon as I entered the room. There was a regular call to another number he saved as Gina. I've been listening to their conversations, buddy, and it seems they're going for a vacation to Hawaii.
next week. This Gina must be invested and he's spending the money on. Brycey boy, can you send these phone conversations to my cellular? I need to see his wife. I said, giving my phone to Bryce, and he said, are you sure about this? Oh, I'm sure. I need to humiliate this beast of a man. Okay, he said, and sent the conversation straight to my phone. The first stage of the plan has been completed, and I figured I need to see his wife next. Not in their home, that's for sure. I'm aware she had a fashion store somewhere. I needed to find out from the secretary. So I met with the secretary, and she told me where her fashion store was located. She said she closes late evenings, and I decided to put a stop to her at store after work. The store was easier to locate than I first expected. As a matter of fact, I'd passed there several times before, but I never knew the store belonged to Mr. Sam's wife. Well, it was about to be a show. I stepped into the office and the receptionist attended to me. I told her I wasn't there to purchase anything and insisted on seeing the CEO. She asked if I had an appointment, and I said no. She then rang and told her someone was here to see her. She asked me to come in. As I stepped inside her office, I began to fidget. If really this was the right thing to do. This could end a marriage, but the woman looked too good to be cheated on. She needed to know. I introduced myself, and I told her the reason I was there. She did not believe at first and told me it was all a lie. I asked her if she knew her husband was traveling the following week, and she affirmed, and said that he told her he was traveling for work. This was the point where I brought out my phone to make her listen to the phone calls between her and his mistress, Gina. She was dumbfounded for a minute, then tears started streaming down her eyes. I felt somehow guilty, but that was not going to back down now. She stood up and picked up her keys and wanted to confront him. I stopped her and made her sit down. If you confront him now, he could still deny it. It's better to catch him red-handed. Well, she agreed and accepted to play along and play it cool to the day he planned to leave for Hawaii with his mistress. All right, everybody, Mr. Reddito here. The moment you've all been waiting on. The final update of the story. It was 6 days since OP met with Mr. Sam's wife, and here's the final update. D-Day. The D-Day had come and all plans have been set in motion. I told Mr. Sam's wife to leave as soon as her husband leaves the home and gently follow him from a distance, and wherever he stops, she should call me and come to meet her there. I called in sick at the office to enable my execution of the mission. I sat by the door with my phone in hand, expecting the call. It took forever, and I was almost running out of patience when there it was, that beautiful phone ring. It was Joy, Mr. Sam's wife. She called to describe the street where he parked his car and said, "Hurry, I'm parked at a distance." I jumped into my car and zoomed off to meet her where she said she parked. After 10 minutes of driving, I sighted Mr. Joy's car beside a donut shop, so I parked beside her. "What took you so long? I've been waiting forever," she asked as she alighted from the car. "He's in that blue house?" I asked in return with a question. "Yes. He entered about 15 minutes ago, I think. I wonder what they're up to. Let's go." So we both walked up to the house. We peeped from the window, and there they were, holding hands and kissing. Miss Joy barged into the room and held his clothes. There was a lot of shouting, screaming, and beating. It was a whole disaster of a mess that almost everyone in the neighborhood came to the house and tried to settle the fight. Well, long story short, 3 weeks later, the CEO came into the company to fix everything that's gone wrong. Most importantly, firing Mr. Sam and arresting him for embezzling his funds. The case was a long one, but amidst the issues, I found a permanent work position in B&O, where I worked weekends. The last time I saw Miss Joy, she said she's working on a divorce. I didn't blame her. The marriage was already dead. The story of Mr. Sam's affair is still being said to this day. Wow. All I can say is wow. Imagine all this time OP, aka Julian, was this hard-working individual, putting his sweat, blood, and tears in for a company that's promising him the world. All he has to do is be patient and wait for that everlasting promotion. Well,
Well, joke's on him, because it turns out his boss was greedy, a snake, toxic, a liar, and an evil individual who was spending all their money that was supposed to go to OP for the promotion and other countless co-workers, spending it on his mistress without his wife ever knowing. I'm so glad that this boss got what came to him when OP contacted the higher-ups. Guys, if you've ever been in a similar situation like this, not the exact same story, but maybe problems at work with your boss, they get caught for doing something, whatever it is, drop your comments down below. I love reading similar situation stories, and let's talk about it in the comment section. My adoptive parents are demanding I give up my wedding venue so my stepsister can have it instead. But that doesn't end there. You will not believe how they treat me as I tell them no. I'm 22 and female. I'm engaged to an amazing man, Jamie, who's also 22, and we're set to get married in the summer at a beautiful country estate. It really is everything I could have dreamt of. A lovely house surrounded by gardens. There's a lake which was weeping willows around it. It's along its bank which trail their branches into the water, and I'm looking forward to kissing my new husband underneath their shadow. I sometimes fall asleep envisioning it. I know it's a bit sickly for everyone else, but to me it's going to be the perfect end to our wedding. Jamie and I are both huge lovers of nature, and for us, as having a wedding surrounding by nature's beauty is the best we could ever hope for. We're getting married in the gardens, as I did not want to be inside when there was all this beauty to see outside. Jamie and I met through work, and we've been together for 2 years now. We work for an environmental agency, and he fell for me when I was covered in mud and sliding around in a river. So I knew that a man who could love me covered in sludge and pond weak was something who would always be by my side. I have an interesting one, I suppose. I work as a description, relationship with my family. Before I get into details of the main problem that I want to share, I should give you a background so you can form a picture of my story. I know it'll be at my viewpoint, but obviously that's all I can give you with some added opinions that Jamie also has said over the last 2 years. This may be a long introduction, but it's really a big bucket of worms that's now been opened. I was adopted as a baby. I was only 4 weeks old when my parents took me. I've never met my biological mother, and I have no interest in doing so. Or, at least, I've never really thought about it. All I know is that she was incredibly young and had issues with her own family. I was given up for adoption immediately after my birth. My adoptive parents have been trying for a child with no luck, and have been told that they will not be able to have bio children. I found out later that the adoption was at my dad's idea, and my mom went along with it as he wanted a family and she was worried he would leave her if she could not have a baby. That's stupid, as my dad is the most gentle, loving man who ever lived. He's a big guy, and he has a huge beard, which can make him look intimidating, I suppose, but he's a big old teddy bear. A big old teddy bear who loves. He's a park ranger, and it's where my love of nature actually comes from. I've spent hours out with him in the mountains and woods, and over the years we've nursed a few fair creatures back to health. He taught me a healthy respect for predators, which will come in later for the story. We're not a rich family, but we're not poor either. My dad's family are careful with money, and we do live well. I often wonder who my mom and dad got together, as she hates living in the mountains and spends a lot of time away in the city. Anyways, I digress. A year after I was adopted, my mom fell pregnant with my sister Holly. We are, therefore, remarkably close in age. My mom immediately transferred all her love and attention to Holly. I now know that when she fell pregnant, she'd ask my dad if they could, quote, just give the other one back. My dad responded absolutely not, and put it down the pregnancy hormones. But my relationship with my mom and sister has always been strained. I guess I didn't really notice it until I was a bit older, as I was just a young child. I was oblivious to the fact that I was different. My dad has gone out of his way to make sure I'm always loved and cherished, and I'll be forever grateful for that. I found out I was adopted when I turned 7 years old.
My dad said they'd always planned to tell me, but he wanted to tell me when I was older and able to process the information clearly. I'm sure he never expected me to find out because my mom was mad that I've not listened to her and snapped at me and saying this. I guess you get this behavior from your real mother. She's obviously a troublemaker getting pregnant at 15. I didn't know what she meant, so I went and asked my dad, who, although was furious with my mom, took time to first explain what adoption meant. Unlike my mom, he was kind about my biological mother and told me that she was just very young, and by putting me up for adoption, she had made a choice to ensure that I would have the best life possible. In his explanation, my biological mom was brave and selfless by making that decision. Not the stupid little girl of mom's explanation. Well, once I knew, my mom seemed to change as though there was no point even pretending that I was her real daughter, and that included how she acted in front of Holly, who, as she grew older, picked up on it and refused to call me her sister. She would tell the other kids at school that she was only child, and when they said, isn't she your sister? She would reply, she's adopted, she doesn't count. It hurt, but I grew so used to it that after a while I barely thought about it. I was protected from so much by my father and grandpa that I did not even think I was affected as much as I could have been if I did not have them. Anyways, fast forward to current events. The past will probably creep in and out of the story, as no matter how much you try to run from your past, it has a nasty way of creeping up on you. Jamie proposed to me just after Christmas. He wanted to get married as soon as possible. Luckily, we already had an idea where we wanted the venue, and we were able to get it done by summer. I knew that planning the wedding of my dreams in a short time would be a lot of work, but Jamie was ready to help, and I was confident that we could do it. It was just after New Year's following the proposal that the first signs of trouble appeared. I was talking to my grandpa about my plans, and he handed me a check that would cover the cost of the venue and all the vendors. I was speechless and said that he didn't have to pay for everything, as Jamie and I had the funds put aside. He smiled and said, "It's not all for me. Your dad has added to it but wanted to keep it between us. Your mom has funny ideas, so let's not rattle her cage." Well, honestly, I was hurt that they even felt this was needed, and part of me thought they were actually in the wrong. But it turned out that they were being prudent. My mom and sisters said all the right words when I announced that Jamie and I were engaged, but I felt that the words from their mouth did not exactly match the look on their faces. I saw Holly exchange looks with my mother a few times that night, but I was too caught up in my happiness to even care. I should have known trouble was brewing when less than a week after Jamie asked to be his wife. Holly arrived the next family dinner wearing an engagement ring with all that could probably be seen from space. It was huge. Well, she waved it around, and there was definitely a lot more excitement on my mom's part at Holly's announcement than mine. My dad, however, looked disappointed and sad. As this was an introduction to the drama, I should probably introduce Holly's fiancé, Ben. Ben's older than she is. He's 28 years of age, while Holly's just 21. She met him in a bar while out with friends celebrating her 21st birthday. I wasn't invited, by the way, and they've been together a whole 6 months. To say that they were a new relationship would be an understatement, as they barely knew each other. Holly said that he was the love of her life, and when you know, you know. Remember when I said my dad taught me to recognize a predator? Well, Ben, I saw one from the first time I've met him. I tried to express my worries to Holly, but she told me to back off and stop being jealous that her man's better than mine. I just put a big smile on my face and tried to be happy for her. I really did. Until the issue that I'm writing about just came up. Holly came to see our venue, and at the time she tooted and rolled her eyes the whole time, but as it was my wedding, I simply did not care. I'd asked her to be my bridesmaids out of a family duty, but I'm sure she would prefer not to be. The problem came to light 2 days later when I was sitting down for lunch with my mom, dad, and Holly. Holly kept nudging my mom and pulling faces, which to be fair was kinda normal, but she seemed desperate for something, and then my mom dropped the bombshell.
Holly wanted the same venue as me. She not only wanted the same venue, but she wanted it before me. Mom had phoned and booked the earlier date, but there's no vacancies. The only free date was 7 months after ours, which would mean a winter wedding. I said that was a shame, but it was a popular venue, and a winter wedding could be nice. We live in an area where we get snow, so it would be pretty. My mom smiled and said that she was glad I could see that the winter wedding could be beautiful, as it was only fair that I move my wedding to that date, and allow Holly to marry first. Guys, I was absolutely stunned. I looked at them and then over at my father, who looked as shocked as I did. Holly was sitting with a smug look on her face, and I didn't know what to do, or even say. I mean, obviously, it's not going to happen. That was my date for my wedding, and I was not going to give it up. I maybe did not handle it well, if I'm being honest, and I stood up, told them to go to HE double hockey sticks, that I hated my family, and then stormed out. That was yesterday, and now I simply feel awful. As soon as I left, the phone started to ring, but I turned it off, so I didn't know how to deal with it and went to Jamie's house. I guess I'm looking for reassurance that I'm right to not give my sister my wedding date and the venue just because my mom said so. Why should I? I'm in such a mess. I need to think and sleep, and I'll let you know what I decide once my anger's cooled down. Update number 1. So yeah, last night I was mad as heck. I would not say I was much happier in the morning, though. I've finally spoken to my dad, and he has reassured me that I have no obligation to give Holly my date and venue. He said he had no idea what they were even going to ask me that, and he would have told them to stop if he would have known. After I left, Mom and Holly had some pretty awful things about me, which my dad would not tell me. But I have an idea of what they could possibly say. I said I'd be staying with Jamie for a while, as I didn't want to be in the house, especially with them there. Dad understood and said he would deal with things. As far as I'm concerned, I'll be putting them and their delusions to one side and concentrating on my wedding. Update number 2. I should have waited before I did the last update and said that things were going to be sorted. I guess that's what people call tempting fate. Jamie and I had a quiet few days, our lives is plodding on as normal. We went back to work, came home, looked at wedding things, and were pretty happy all in all. Until it wasn't good anymore, and was instead a big pile of stress, and appearance of past family issues was rising to the surface like a boiling geyser. I was at work with Jamie when my phone rang, and it was the venue. They said they were calling to confirm some details following the email correspondence. I was confused and said, "Wait, what?" Which was not the most elegant response I know. The reception out in the middle of nowhere was not great, and I was standing up to my waist in cold river water, so I managed to ask for things to be emailed to me as I couldn't hear very well. The hotel agreed, and I put it back to my mind, distracted by my work. In fact, I forgot about it until I checked my work emails, and I saw the email from the hotel. I opened it and read it 3 times, not entirely sure what I was even reading. Well, I called Jamie over to read it on my shoulder before I lost my mind. The email said this as followed. "We are pleased to confirm that we've looked at the details sent to us and will be accommodating the changes as requested. Please could you fill in the following paperwork confirming the names of the bride and groom who'll be joining up on you on your wedding date, and confirm that the new dates agreed between you for the new date for the original parties." I looked at Jamie, and even though I knew that the answer to the question said was, "You did not change anything, did you?" Obviously, Jamie had not sent an email, and I began to realize how long and low my mom and Holly were prepared to sink. Well, I called my dad and told him what happened. He was absolutely furious, and said he would deal with it and talk to me once he's spoken to Mother. As a precaution, I emailed the venue and said that I've not agreed to any changes, that the original date was still my wedding date, not my sister's. I spent the last hour pacing my room like a caged tiger, waiting for my father to contact me. I was ready to go home and fight it out with my mom and Holly, but Jamie was the voice of reason and said to let my dad deal with it. I'm angry. I'm a crying mess.
and I'm sorry this is a lot for an update. Well, I'm just waiting for people to sort things out for me, but I'll update when I hear from my dad.
What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. I hope you guys are enjoying this story so far, and I hope you're having a great day. If you're new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito, and I read stories every single day, narrating some of the most dramatic stories on the World Wide Web. Update number 3 is about to happen right now, and if you think things were crazy, you've seen nothing yet. Update number 3, here it is. This will be longer and more of a harsh update, so you might want to sit down and get a stiff drink. My dad called me after talking to my mom and sister, and they said that I've agreed to the changes, which was stupid, a very stupid argument to make, as I was obviously going to deny it. They told my dad that I've made the arrangement with Holly and Ben, and they would not change their story. I told my dad it's obviously a pile of lies, and to his credit, he agreed as he knew that there's no way I would have given them a date in the venue. My dad said he wanted to have a family meeting to get all the bad blood out and try to work out the reason why there's so much hostility between Holly and I. I initially said absolutely not, no way, not a chance. My dad sounded a little disappointed on the phone that I did give in and agree to sit down and chalk this out. I left this update until after the meeting, as I assumed that it would be the final update and everything would be settled. I did not expect the hate-filled tirade that was about to come my way, and the actual things that my mom and sister had done and planned to do. I wish I could say that this is all going to have a happy ending, but there's no way that anything good can come from this. But I'm getting ahead of myself here, aren't I? Let's start in the beginning. If this takes too much mentality from me, I might do it in 2 parts. I'm drained and don't have anything left in me. Jamie and I arrived at my parents' home with my grandpa. He had picked us up and offered to drive us back there. I think he knew in advance that this was going to be rough. And honestly, we might need a drink. He's a really great man. So we arrived with my mom, Holly, and Ben just sitting at the table looking confident and smug. So my heart sank as I was hoping Ben would not be there. He made me feel uncomfortable, and at the time I didn't really know why. I do now, though. He's an awful human being, and I hate him with my entire being. But more of that soon. My dad was putting on a cheerful face and trying to keep the peace, but he was fighting a losing battle. As the 2 sides glared at each other with barely concealed contempt, my dad started the conversation, asking about why my mom had tried to change the dates of the wedding. My mom went on about how I'd agreed with what was just said, and I did not agree now to make trouble. I said she's lying. I would have never have agreed to that. I did not know even Holly and Ben had been settling a date yet, and Holly has been rude about the venue when I chose it, so why would she want it anyways? All she had to do was pick somewhere else, and she could get married whenever she wanted. I did not add that I would not be there, but there's no way I was going to her wedding to Ben. My mom called me selfish, and then the knives came out. She looked right at my dad and asked why he was supporting me over his real daughter. I stared at her, and before my dad could speak, I shouted, "I am his real daughter." Holly laughed and said, "No, you're not. You're not even blood family. You're just a hanger-on. When are you going to get that hint that we don't want you? No one does. Not your real mom either, and we don't either." Guys, I was speechless, and I just stared at them. I could not believe that my mom and sister hated me so much. What have I ever done to deserve it? My dad was quiet for a while and finally slowly said that he had 2 daughters. I was his oldest, and I would always be his daughter. My mom spat out that I would never be hers, and she didn't want me in the house after the meeting. By now, I was in tears, and I saw the sly smile on Ben's face at that point, and then shared looks between him and Holly. My mom had always favored Holly, but this was bad even for her, and I started to realize that her mind was being poisoned against me. Ben then joined the conversation and added gasoline to the already hot fire. And then he looked at Jamie with the look that I think was supposed to say,
"Sorry to have to tell you this, buddy, but your wife-to-be is not loyal to you. She's been trying to get with me for ages."
I stared at Ben and finally snapped, shouting at him he's delusional. There's no way on earth I would want to be anywhere near him. He makes my skin crawl. That's when Holly looked smugged and pushed Ben's phone across the table to Jamie. She looked as though she had the winning hand of an important poker game. As she said, "It's all there in the writing, Jamie. She's lying. She's a cheater. Sorry, I can't even type what she called me." I looked at the phone and laughed. Jamie picked it up and stared, reading the messages, and his face went from disbelief to anger. And for a minute I was worried he was falling for their tricks. He slowly slid the phone over to me, and I read through the filth that I'd apparently sent to Ben. The low-life pawn scum. I pointed out that it was not my phone number, but Holly said I was obviously not going to use my real number and must have had another phone that I used to cheat on Jamie with. My mom just sat there, looking like a cat that got the cream, and I was not sure if she was in on the plan to try to destroy my relationship or if she actually believed it to be true. My dad and grandpa stayed silent, and I found out later they were letting me fight for myself unless I looked like I was struggling. The truth is, they had total faith in me, which I'm forever grateful for. I looked over at Jamie and asked him what he thought, and before he had a chance to answer, Holly spoke. "Well, seeing as OP's a cheater, I don't think you'll need that wedding date, will you, Jamie? So Ben and I are actually doing you a favor, as you won't be needing the stress of canceling everything. We'll just take all the same vendors as you've booked. You can even come to our wedding if you like, but not you," she added, looking right at me. I asked her if she really thought I would want to cheat on the man I've loved with her slime ball of a fiancé. Well, at this point, Holly gets upset, asking what's wrong with her man. I'd be lucky if he even looked at me as I was ugly, and he already had a beautiful girlfriend. She added I must get my looks from my junkie mother. As far as I know, my biological mother was not on any drugs in her life. Jamie finally spoke up, saying that he did not believe their lies for a minute, and that they were truly sad and pathetic for trying to go this far. They obviously had issues within their own lives if they wanted to try to ruin ours so desperately. I looked at my dad and said that I appreciate that he tried to help, but I was not prepared to sit and listen to their lies any longer. My mother finally spoke and said that when she had spoken to the venue, she'd ask about the catering, etc., and she was in contact with all the vendors. She made it very clear that she would not be allowing Dad to pay for any of my weddings as I wasn't his real daughter. That phrase was thrown around a lot that night. She also mentioned she had emailed them all to say that we would no longer be needing their services. I said she was lying because I would have heard from them. Holly laughed and said that Ben had set up new emails in my name, and they've emailed everyone saying my email had been hacked, so to use this one instead. She laughed and said it's a shame about your wedding dress being canceled too. Guys, that was the absolute final straw, and I hate to admit this, but I lost it. I lost my ever-loving temper, and I threw the water from my glass into Ben's ugly face. All this did was make him laugh, and Holly said I was showing my true colors. As I pushed my chair away from the table and asked my grandpa to take me home, my mom twisted the knife that was already stuck deep, metaphorically, between my ribs. She said that, as at the moment I was disowned and I would be out of the inheritance, as Holly was the only one who should be getting money, being the real daughter. I may or may not have told her where she could shove the money before I left, as the anger took over, and Grandpa and Jamie ushered me out of the house in tears. Well, my dad came and whispered in my ear that I should leave it with him, and he'll be around to talk with me in the morning. I looked at him, still crying, and told him I love him, and my grandpa took me home. In the car, my grandpa told me everything's going to be okay. He loves me, and that they would see me tomorrow. I found out later he went back to the house to support my father, but I only found out the following day, so I was left destroyed and broken by the hate thrown at me, by the people that should be loving me. I can do nothing now but wait for my dad tomorrow to see if I've truly lost everything from my wedding to my family. Update number 4, final update. I was going to tag the conversation with my dad on the last update, but I fell asleep, And then this morning, I thought this needed its own conclusion. Life has really turned upside down for us all, and all the family and I thought that I've been split in my half. My dad and Grandpa tore my mom, Holly, and Ben to strips of the treatment of me, not just because of the wedding, but for my entire life treatment. I spent the morning emailing all the vendors to explain what happened, but one were able to still attend. The one that can't was very helpful and sorted out a friend of theirs who would also provide the services and would stand in. My dress is safe, so that was a relief. So I guess I'll just conclude this nightmare with the major changes that'll be happening from this point on. Firstly, my wedding will be happening on the date I booked, and my dad's spoken to them to say that unless they hear from either Jamie and I or him in person, to double-check all emails and correspondence before acting on it. He told them in detail that his wife and younger daughter had nothing to do with the wedding. He also told me that he's contacted his lawyer to make an appointment to look at the inheritance side of things. He said I was not to worry about that. I said I wasn't worried, as money's not even my focus, Dad. His love was, and I just wanted to know he loved me as his daughter. He hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, and he cried as he said he loved me more than life itself. He told me how he was proud he was of me and that he would always be by my side. My grandpa said the same, and I felt so loved. Then came the bombshell. My dad told me he had not been happy in his marriage for a long time. My mom had pushed him time and time again to, quote, get rid of me, and he had tried to ignore it, but this was the final straw. As the house came a part of his job, he had told my mom to make arrangements to move out within a week. Ben has a house, so Holly can go there. He's also made it very clear that he disapproved of Ben, and that he was well aware of what he thought he was marrying into a family with money. Holly had yelled that Ben loved her, so my dad said that was good, because he would not be getting any money from us. Dad said when he said that, Ben's face dropped, and he did not think he would stick around once he realized Holly had nothing to offer him. The whole extended family is aware of what's happened, and they mostly support Dad and me. There's a few of my mom's side that seem to think she's right in her view that I'm not a real daughter to my dad, but their opinions don't really affect us. My mom and Holly tried to lay down the ultimatum that it was me or them, and Dad said that was their choice, and he would miss them, but he was not abandoning me. I tried to protest, but he laughed and said they would change their mind, don't worry. He just needed to let them cool their heads for a while. So it's a mixed conclusion, really. Not all good, not all bad. I don't know if I'll ever have a relationship with my mom and Holly again, but I'm happy. I'll always have Jamie, my dad, and Grandpa who love me. Life is like that, I guess. You win some, and you lose some. Alright guys, so I have mixed feelings about this one. I want to first shout out the grandfather and OP's stepfather for this, because if it was not for those two people, I think that OP would have been treated so much worse. But at the same time, I think the stepfather was an absolute doormat for most of the time. He didn't stand up for OP until the very end. I mean, yeah, he did certain little jabs here and jabs there, but I think he allowed way too much mistreatment from the mother, who was the one who wanted to adopt in the first place, and the stepsister, who was raised to be like that. Let me know your exact thoughts of this story, guys. If you don't agree with me, that's totally cool, but let's talk about it in the comment section. Go ahead and drop your thoughts down below. If you're new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. I read stories here every single day. If that's something you're into, consider subscribing. I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll catch you in the next one.